Honorable members, order. Take the nearest seats. Take the nearest seats, buddy. Which is the nearest? Order, honorable member. Honorable members, I have a short communication to make. Honorable members, this is in relation to the annual National Prayer Breakfast of this year, 2023. Honorable members, as you may be aware, the Bunge Prayer Fellowship Group shall host the 20th Annual National Prayer Breakfast on Wednesday, 31st May, 2023 at the Safari Park Hotel in Nairobi. The theme of this year's breakfast is reconciliation with God and with men, and I believe with women as well, as anchored in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18. The prayer breakfast is expected to be attended by over 2,500 guests from our own country and also from across the world, including leaders from the political class, top government officials, members of the diplomatic corps, the clergy, the business community, and Kenyans from diverse backgrounds. Honorable members, this year's prayer breakfast, just like the previous ones, is an interdenominational prayer meeting organized by members of the Bunge Prayer Fellowship, whose membership is drawn from both houses of parliament, the Honorable Samuel Chepkonga CBS MP, and Senator Daniel Manzo MP are the co-chairpersons of the fellowship. Honorable members, you are all invited to this very important event, which shall provide an opportunity to meet and seek divine intervention for Kenya at such a time as this. Towards this end, members are requested to confirm attendance with the Office of the Clerk by Friday, 26th May 2023, in order to facilitate seating arrangements. For orderliness, you will be issued with invitation cards to the event. Honorable members, you may contact the Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, CBS MP, or Senator Daniel Manzo MP for any further clarification on the event. I thank you. Honorable members, I also have a ruling that I'll deliver at 3:30.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know the members around me. When you read out the communication about the prayer breakfast, many members around me are doubting those prayers because of the inclusion of Honorable Chepkonga. But I have assured them he's a very prayerful person and a committed Christian. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, 4th May 2023. 1, the Multilateral Convention to implement tax treaty-related measures to prevent base erosion and profit shifting from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the financial year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. A, Lands Limited. B, Kenya Fisheries Service. C, Kenya Veterinary Board. D, Pest Control Products Board. E, Kenya Sesafly and Trypanosomiasis Eradication Council. F, Kenya Development Corporation. G, National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. H, Water Resources Authority. I, Tourism Fund. The National Environment Trust Fund. Hydrologist Registration Board. Egerton University, and M, Machakos University. 3, report of the Auditor General and financial statements on revitalizing Irish potato production for COVID-19 affected small-scale producers project. IFAD grants number 000-03589 and 2-000-03960 for the 14 months period ended 28th February 2023, and the certificates therein from Agriculture and Food Authority. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Our member for delegation, Emmanuel Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 3rd May 2023. Report of the Kenya delegation to the Entrepreneurship and Financial Training Program for Women Entrepreneurs and Certification ceremony held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia on 27th February to 3rd March 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wangwe. Chairperson, Committee on Public Petitions. Who is the chairperson? Majority Leader? Who is your chair on public petitions?
And the Vice Chair.
Is there any member of that committee? Where is your chairman, Kitayama?
Vice Chair.
Honorable Speaker, the chairman is around. He's just not walked into the chamber, but he's around.
He's around? Okay, we'll come back to that. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Health. Leader of Majority, you are always privy to the order of business. Please ensure that any chairman or chairperson of a committee who is reflected on the order paper must be in the chamber by 2:30. I think this is a matter that we have discussed even in House Business Committee. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Health, Honorable Dr. Bukose.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, 4th May 2023. Reports of the Departmental Committee on Health on 1. The second Public Health Conference in Africa held from 13 to 15 December 2022, held in Kigali, Rwanda. 2. The 14th Network of African Parliamentary Committees of Health near Bako meeting held from February 22nd to 23rd, 2023 in Kampala, Uganda. 3. Universal Health Coverage benchmarking visit to Thailand from 7 to 12 March 2023. And 4. The benchmarking visit to South Africa Medical Research Council, University of Cape Town, and Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa from 13th to 23rd March 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Bukose. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Where is
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Gikaria, go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, 4th May 2023. Reports of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining on its consideration of the ratification of the following. 1. The amended Nairobi Convention and the Protocol for the Protection of Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean from land-based sources and activities. 2. The Kigali Amendments on the Montreal Protocol on the substance that deplete the ozone layer. And lastly, number 3, the Bamako Convention on the ban on the importation into Africa and the control of transboundary movement and management of hazardous waste within Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Gikaria. Next, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation. Marwa, is that, you are the chair?
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, go
Mr.
ahead.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, 4th May 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee on Blue Economy, Water and Irrigation on its attendance of the second edition of the Southwest Indian Ocean Ministerial Summit held from 5th to 7th April 2023 in Seychelles. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works. Johanna Ngeno, is that you? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, 4th May 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee on Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works on its participation at the World of Concrete Forum held in January 2023 in Nevada, United States of America. I thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to see the Chairperson, Committee on Public Petitions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would first want to apologize to the Speaker and the House for coming in late. I know I'd been called before, but I'm sorry for that. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, allow me, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, that is 4th May 2023. Report on the Public Petitions Committee on its considerations on the public petition number 07 of 2022 by the Honorable Samuel Atandi, MP, regarding probable loss of investments by Insighton High Yield Solutions Platform. I beg to lay.
Thank you, Honorable Nimrod. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining, Honorable Gikaria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining on its consideration of the ratification of the Kigali Amendments on the Montreal Protocol on the substances that deplete the ozone layer, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 4th May 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8, subsection 4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act of 2012, approves the ratification of Kigali Amendments on the Montreal Protocol on the substance that deplete the ozone layer. 2, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining on its consideration of the ratification of the amendment, Nairobi Convention and the Protocol for Protection of Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean from land-based sources and activities, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 4th May 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 4, provisions of Section 8, subsection 4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act of 2012, approves the ratification of the amendment of the amended Nairobi Convention and the Protocol for Protection of Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean from land-based sources and activities. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining in its consideration of the ratification of the Bamako Convention on the ban of importation into Africa and the control of transboundary movement and management of hazardous waste within Africa, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 4th May 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8, subsection 4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act of 2012, approves the ratification of the Bamako Convention on the ban of the importation into Africa and control of transboundary movement and management of hazardous waste within Africa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. We have any statements?
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Do we have any statements? Majority Leader, your usual Thursday statement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 2nd May 2023, to prioritize the business for consideration during the week. Honorable Speaker, I wish to commend the leadership of the House and members for the dedication and cooperation exhibited in this session so far. We have certainly been able to meet the statutory timelines in respect of all matters that were before us. We are now due for the long break commencing tomorrow, going by our calendar of regular sittings. The House is scheduled to resume regular sittings on Tuesday, 6th June 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Honorable Speaker, members may wish to note that this will be a particularly busy recess for departmental committees and the Budget and Appropriations Committee, as well as the Finance Committee, as they engage with ministries, departments, and agencies on the budget estimates for the financial year 2023-2024, submitted in the course of this week. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, there are various matters relating to bills, treaties, approval hearings, inquiries, and responses to statements still pending before committees. I therefore urge all our committees, their chairs and members to be present and actively participate in ensuring that all these matters are concluded and reports brought to the House upon resumption on the 6th of June at 2:30 p.m. Honorable Speaker, upon resumption, the House is expected to continue with debate on the second reading of the statute miscellaneous law, the Miscellaneous Amendments Bill of 2022, the general debate on the proposal to amend the Constitution and the standing orders, and the report on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, should they not be concluded today. The House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, 6th June 2023, to schedule the business for the rest of that week. Honorable Speaker, I also note that question time in the plenary in the past few weeks has proceeded well as Cabinet Secretaries appear in the plenary to answer questions and expound on policies under their respective dockets. I would like to thank all members for their continued participation in this process. Upon resumption of the House, Honorable Speaker, I will notify members on which Cabinet Secretaries will appear in plenary during that week and the questions that will be responded to then. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I want to wish members a wonderful recess period as they spend time with their families, rejuvenate, and also discharge their parliamentary and constituency obligations. Honorable Speaker, as I have noted in this statement, this is one of our long recess in the first session after the short recess that we had. And the 4 weeks that will be on recess, Honorable Speaker, will be a 4 weeks working recess. And even as I note that and wish members time with their families, that will be because they will be able to get home earlier than usual. As you are aware, Honorable Speaker, the House rises at 7, on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. And therefore, members do get to their families late. But during the recess, since the committees will be sitting from 9 in the morning, you will have much more time with your families. But I want to ask you to please avail yourselves in committees, especially in consideration of the budget estimates and the finance bill, and in consideration of all the bills, treaties, approval hearings, and reports that are before the committees, and hopefully when we resume on the 6th of June, all these reports shall be ready for tabling and debate before the House. With that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Majority Leader, in case it escaped your mind, yesterday the Speaker directed the Minister for Education to appear before the House on the first Wednesday after recess to continue answering the myriad of questions that were unasked yesterday when he appeared. So you may just include that in your statement.
Sure.
For purposes of Hansard.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you for that reminder. Honorable Speaker, may I just include, as you have stated, on resumption, Honorable Speaker, on the 6th of June, on the 7th, Wednesday, 7th June, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, the Honorable Ezekiel Machogu, will appear to answer to the questions that were left pending yesterday as directed by the Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission.
The Honorable Murugara, Chair JLAC.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission, that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 relating to extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to the to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominees submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission by a period of 14 days from 31st May 2023. Honorable Speaker, yesterday you made a communication on the nomination of persons for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission from His Excellency the President, in which Ms. Caroline Zelani Kingoku Ajuoga and Honorable Isaac Kiprono Ruto were nominated to serve in the Judicial Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir, this evening, the House proceeds on recess for 1 month. And bearing in mind the provisions of the law, that under the Judicial Service Commission, we have 7 days to approve the nominees, while under Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2012, we have 28 days. The correct position when the two are in conflict is that this House has 28 days within which to make the approval. A calculation of the 28 days lapse on the 31st of May 2023, by which time this House will be on recess. Therefore, to ensure that there is sufficient time for the Committee, Justice and Legal Affairs, to consider the two nominees, so that we go through the vetting process and we are able to table to this House a good report on the two, we have deemed it necessary that we extend the period by 14 days. The 14 days will take us to after the House resumes. So with those remarks, I urge the House to pass the procedural motion and approve an extension for 14 days. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those remarks, I call upon the Honorable Victor Koech, also known popularly in his constituency as Mandazi of Chepalungu, to actually second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. As I rise, let me first of all congratulate the two nominees and especially His Excellency the first governor for Bomet, who is known not only in Bomet County, but in the entire country for always fighting for devolution. He is a man who is known to have the Constitution at the backbone of his hand. Today, Mr. Speaker, we all know that we are proceeding to recess. And for this particular reason, I want to seek the House that they approve the extension of a period for consideration of the two nominees. And I equally would wish to wish the two nominees well as they prepare to appear before the the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. For that, Mr. Speaker, I would wish to second. Thank you.
Honorable members, order. Order the honorable members standing in the walkway. Take your seats. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provision of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, relating to extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominees submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as members of JSC by a period of 14 days from 31st May 2023. Is that the mood of the House? I now put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, relating to extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominees submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission by a period of 14 days from 31st May 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Before we call the next order, members, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the following in the public gallery: J.U. Quat, Primary School, Juja, Thika, ACC and Kigumo Parish, Kigumo, Muranga, PCEA, Kariobangi South Parish, Embakasi West, Nairobi, and in the Speaker's Gallery, Kahara, Gadithi, and family from Langata. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 9, procedural motion, reduction of publication period for a specified bill.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee. Honorable Okello, what's your point of order? Give Honorable Okello the microphone.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. And Honorable Speaker, I'm standing because of a matter that is very dear to me and to members of this House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I acknowledge the role played by Parliamentary Service Commission, a commission that you chair, that looks into the welfare and betterment and safety and comfort of members of this House, of the Senate, together with the Secretariat, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the role of Parliamentary Service Commission also relates to the security of members of this House, Honorable Speaker. Lately, or a matter of last week, members from within this coalition, my side of the coalition...
Sorry, Honorable Jared, could you please repeat? I was listening to...
all right.
All the honorable members, the chair can hardly hear what the distinguished member for Nyando is saying.
Honorable Speaker, I acknowledge the tacit role that you play as chair of Parliamentary Service Commission. This is a commission that looks into the welfare, security, comfort of members of parliament in this House, of the Senate, together with the members of the Secretariat. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, a matter that is of great concern to my side of the political divide is that the police unilaterally withdraws security of members of this coalition, Honorable Speaker, each time there is a difference expressed as a matter of objectivity from the side of this coalition, Honorable Speaker. And as the chair of the commission, Honorable Speaker, I'd wanted to invite you to help us address this matter, because security of any member of this parliament is just as important as the other member, Honorable Speaker. Last week, members amounting to about 20 from our coalition had their securities withdrawn, and we haven't had any response or any word from the Parliamentary Service Commission, Honorable Speaker. And additionally, the leadership within Azimio coalition, and that includes Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Martha Karua, and many and others had their securities withdrawn, Honorable Speaker, without any reason. So this is a unilateral decision that is constantly being taken by the police, and not just this time. We had a similar experience during the other regime, Honorable Speaker. So as the chair of Parliamentary Service Commission, Honorable Speaker, allow me to invite you to protect members of this coalition that we do not experience withdrawal of our security that then exposes us so badly to the public, Honorable Speaker, and most importantly to the leadership of Azimio coalition. Honorable Speaker, we have had instances where we have had members of the other coalition expressing threats to the leadership within Azimio coalition. And Honorable Speaker, when the security is withdrawn amidst such threats, then we have a cause to worry, Honorable Speaker. And as I was reading the Constitution the other day, Honorable Speaker, about the role that you play as the Speaker, that in the absence of the two leaders above, then the National Assembly Speaker takes over. So this is a matter, the Honorable Speaker, that I want to invite you to delve into it so that we can all be safe. We may have differences in opinion, but that does not warrant withdrawal of security of any person within the Republic of Kenya. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the security provided to the leadership, especially for those who have been Prime Minister, President, and the Deputy President, is enshrined in our laws, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, let us go by the dictates of our laws and not whimsically make decisions that do not square with the same Constitution that we subscribe to, Honorable Speaker. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me commend Honorable Walter Owino for raising that issue. Because, Honorable Speaker, it is indeed true.
Jared Okello.
Jared Okello, the member for Nyando. And you know, Honorable Speaker, Nyando is a constituency very close to my heart because their former member of Parliament, Fred Outa, was a very good friend of mine, and I have had occasion to visit Nyando constituency with the Honorable Outa a number of times. It's only that the current member has not invited me for fear of the unknown. But Honorable Speaker, he has raised a very important issue on the security of members. And it is indeed true, Honorable Speaker, that as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission and the Commission, you have a responsibility in ensuring that all our members of Parliament are secure, especially when they are carrying on their work as members of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, sometime in the last Parliament, in the 12th Parliament, I was among the first victims of security withdrawal by the handshake regime. Honorable Speaker, I did raise that matter on the floor of this House. And I remember then a number of our friends who are supporting the handshake regime, especially those within ODM, celebrated the withdrawal of my security and that of other members who they then, in a very derogatory manner, referred to us as Tanga-Tanga. And they told us you cannot be given security to Tanga-Tanga with. But Honorable Speaker, I will not fall into that category of celebrating the apparent withdrawal of security officers to members of parliament. However, Honorable Speaker, we must also responsibly use, Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from the Honorable Babu Owino
and the team around you.
And the party leader, Jubilee.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I was saying I want to avoid the route taken by my colleagues in ODM to celebrate the withdrawal of security. But I was also saying, as much as Honorable Speaker, we are entitled to security. And I remember that time they told us that you are secure. You don't need policemen. The police have ensured that everybody within the country is secure. Okay. And we stayed for almost 4 years without security, Honorable Speaker, because of our political persuasion. And I would never support the withdrawal of a member of parliament security on account of his political persuasion. However, Honorable Speaker, we must also, as members of parliament who enjoy that rare privilege, that when most of our constituents are being terrorized by thugs, and there is rampant insecurity around the country, we enjoy that rare privilege of having armed officers with us almost on a 24-hour basis. And Honorable Speaker, it is a rare privilege given to us by the people of Kenya, and therefore must not be taken away by anybody. However, Mr. Speaker, we also have a duty and obligation to make sure that we do not in any way or manner misuse those security officers. And Honorable Speaker, there have been occasions where members of parliament, and I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, there is already a member of parliament whose security officer was disarmed on account of misuse of the firearm. And Honorable Speaker, our officers are charged with the responsibility of protecting us to be able to execute our duties as members of parliament without fear or without being intimidated by anybody in the streets. But our officers are not given to us, Honorable Speaker, to protect us in violent demonstrations and protests. I think, Honorable Speaker, when I listened to the Cabinet Secretary of the Interior on Monday, he did direct officers to ensure that there is law and order in Nairobi and in other urban centers where we had been threatened with a violent protest, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, when the Cabinet Secretary and the Inspector General of Police, on account of the Public Order Act, says that you have not conformed to the law, you have not informed the police on where you want to picket, what roads you want to use, what times, and he says the police and directs the police as the Inspector General of Police to ensure that there are no violent demonstrations and protests, then we want to use our officers who are armed to face off with the other armed officers, Honorable Speaker. We are calling for anarchy in the country. And as much, Honorable Speaker, as I said, I would not celebrate the withdrawal of security on any member, not even on Honorable Nyikal or the Honorable John Buddy, or even Babu Owino, who even has a record of misuse of firearms himself, and is still guarded by an armed officer, Honorable Speaker. I will never, and I shall never stand to support the withdrawal of their security. But we must act responsibly as leaders. We cannot be leading youthful young men who are touching vehicles, trailers on the southern bypass, matatus, and Honorable Speaker, the matatu that was touched by goons from Kibra on Gong Road belonged to a young man from Ondire village in my constituency. That young man tells me he's still struggling to repay his loan. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, when it is us as leaders who are using police officers seconded to us to protect us, to intimidate other police officers not to carry out their duties. And Honorable Speaker, it is sad. And I said it here, Honorable Speaker, and some of the people who are crying in ODM today were the first people to shout me down when I said it was rather perturbing to see a person the stature of a former president commandeer goons and him with armed security standing next to him and goons chasing away police officers who are carrying out their constitutional and legal mandate, Honorable Speaker. And we're only putting our country in danger, Honorable Speaker, if we allow these things to happen. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to request you, even as you consider the request by the Honorable Jared, the member for Nyando, that as members of parliament we act responsibly. It is true, you are within your rights to picket, to demonstrate. Even if you want to protest peacefully or violently, it is within your rights. But do not misuse government officers who are armed to face off with other armed government officers under the same command, Honorable Speaker. That, Honorable Speaker, I think it is only fair that we also protect our officers because they are also human beings like ourselves. Honorable Speaker, remember in Kisumu the other day, we lost a young man from Nyamira County, a police officer, who was killed by youth who were throwing stones. Nobody bothered to mourn that police officer. Honorable Speaker, people have lost property on account of these demonstrations, Honorable Speaker, and that is why I went out of my way yesterday, together with the leader of majority in the Senate, to call for sobriety. And I said, Honorable Speaker, yesterday, we bent backwards to accommodate our colleagues so that we can continue to engage with each other in this house, in an environment where we consult each other, we talk to each other, and not at each other in the streets.
Thank you.
And I want to ask, now that all these honorable members are not protesting with other people out there, Honorable Speaker, I want to request, and I'm sure, I think by now, most likely they have their officers, because when one of them told me that they had their security withdrawn, that is why many were hanging around the house here and not even joining the demonstrations because they didn't have their security. I did ask the CS of the Interior, and he told me they have indeed not withdrawn anybody's security. They have only asked their officers not to participate in protests and demonstrations. Therefore, maybe just by way of information, to inform the member for Nyando that officers were only instructed by their commanders not to participate in violent protests, but to protect the lives and property of the people of Nairobi. And Honorable Speaker, finally, let me congratulate and thank the leadership of the minority, because when we engaged, and Honorable Speaker, it is good to indicate to the country that indeed we have been in engagement with the minority leadership and the leadership of ODM and the other parties within Azimio, including the party leader of Jubilee, the Honorable Sabina Chege. We have been engaging, Honorable Speaker, and even over the weekend when we engaged, we indicated that we were more than willing, Honorable Speaker, to get back to the negotiating table. But we said from our side in the Kenya Kwanza coalition, we are only going to engage on the table of negotiations, but not in the streets. And we did implore on our colleagues over the weekend, and even as late as Monday night, to call off the demonstrations, and I congratulate and thank them for calling off the demonstrations, because that is the mark of leadership. We are all elected, and I want to say we are capable in this house. And without preempting debate, Honorable Speaker, I know there is also the talk of extra-parliamentary, inter-parliamentary, within parliament, bipartisan approach. I want to encourage all the members of a bipartisan team, ably led by the Honorable Tiende Amolo and the Honorable Gitonga Rugara, that we have the ability and the capacity to engage on all the matters that shall come before that committee and be able to resolve these issues without having to throw words at each other, without having to protest, without having to blackmail the country using violence and violent protests. Honorable Speaker, we can indeed engage here and be able to resolve all these issues. And I want to trust that the Honorable Murugara, our Chair Jailak, his colleague, co-chair, the Honorable Tiende Amolo, will now steer this discussion in the right direction to ensure that we never ever have to engage again in the streets. And in closing, Honorable Speaker, may I take this opportunity to ask the Interior Ministry and the Inspector General of Police if there is any member of Parliament whose security has been withdrawn, Honorable Speaker, for other reasons, they should consider reinstating that security. But I must re-emphasize, please, let us not misuse our officers. If you want to go for demonstrations, if you want to go for other errands at night, allow your officer to go home to his family and take care of yourself and your other business at night. And even in the streets, take care of your business alone, not with armed police officers. With that, Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Honourable members, I honestly don't want to open debate on this. He is the majority leader representing government, and he has said if there are any security details withdrawn, he is advising the minister to return them. I will give Senior Counsel Tiende Amolo 1 minute, Senior Counsel. I don't want to open an endless debate on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have tremendous respect for Honorable Chungwa, leader of majority. But my problem with him is that he probates and reprobates. He says good things, and immediately after that good things, he says another very bad thing. And sometimes he says them without information. The first point of information, Honorable Chungwa, is that the police officer who died is not from Nyamira. He was from my constituency, a place called Nyakongo in Darieda, the late Brian Oduor. And the second point of information is that he was not beaten by goons or by anybody. He was run over by the very same Land Cruiser that he was commanding, and I have the autopsy report. And in fact, we have sought compensation from the police for killing my constituent. Now, if you allow me 1 more minute, Mr. Speaker, on the substantive issue, I just want to confirm it's not a matter of speculation, as Honorable Chungwa might be saying. It is true that our security was withdrawn. But let us just make this distinction. First, withdrawal of security of a member of parliament must be different from withdrawal of security of those who the law mandates provision of security. Like you, Mr. Speaker, when you retire, you are entitled to security, and it cannot be a matter of discretion of anyone. So a former vice president, a former prime minister, and people of that caliber are by law entitled to security. That cannot be withdrawn, and it's not a matter of discretion. When it comes to a member of parliament, Mr. Speaker, there is good reason why members of parliament have security. And in fact, this matter has been affirmed even by the High Court in a constitutional petition. So I want to suggest to the Honorable Chungwa that when you address this matter, do not address it and then you add but. That you may be entitled, but only if you do the following. That is not the case. I want to assure Mr. Honorable Chungwa, I have always stood firm. In the last parliament, I was firm. When our security was withdrawn, when some of the security of those who are perceived to be against government then was withdrawn, I've always maintained that a member of parliament is entitled to security at all times, irrespective of what they say. If a police officer misuses their firearm, there's provision of how to deal with it. The Police Act is very clear. But you cannot stand here and say that some members of parliament who engage in violent demonstration, there is no single member of parliament in this house who has engaged in any violent demonstration. So you cannot then come and start saying that if you engage in violent demonstration, and in any event, exercise of a constitutionally provided right cannot be irresponsible. Mr. Speaker, I just want to emphasize this point, that even those who think it's a matter of discretion, if you lose one member of parliament, and right now there are situations and there are people who have been tasked to deal with some members of parliament, including myself, losing one member of parliament, it is these same people who will be crying on how much money you're using to do the by-election. So, Mr. Speaker, what I wanted to invite you to do is to make a very firm finding that irrespective of where you are, whether you are in government or not, minority or majority, a member of parliament is entitled to security until and unless there's misuse, in which case they are dealt with under the Police Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Didymus, what's your point of order?
I rise on point of order number 91, that a member shall be responsible for the accuracy of any facts which the member alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. Honorable Speaker, the honorable member for Rarieda has claimed that some people have been tasked to eliminate certain members of parliament. This is a very weighty allegations which the honorable member should be called upon to substantiate. And he is a senior counsel, he's a senior lawyer in this country. Even though I am aware that he's the one who misled the Kenyans through the committee of experts in drafting some of the very useless chapters in our constitution now, and is again, he should be called upon to substantiate or withdraw them.
John Badi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
You have 1 minute.
Just a minute.
Yes.
Let me then choose what to say.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to put emphasis that where an act of parliament confers a benefit, privilege, or whatever it is to an office, that must be respected. And Mr. Speaker, I was telling Honorable Ichung'wah that this law that confers the privilege of security to former Prime Minister, Deputy President, former speakers, is a bill that I personally sponsored in this House. And I was telling him I cannot allow that and sit in this House and see the law that I brought, that anybody urinating on law that I brought to this House. Mr. Speaker, that is something that is unacceptable, and this is something that the government must respect. But finally, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ichung'wah is saying that they were the first to experience withdrawal of their security as Tanga-Tanga. That is misrepresenting facts. I will tell you that you cheered when our security were withdrawn, together with the present speaker, when he was minority leader in the Senate. I was minority leader in the National Assembly. Our security were withdrawn, not just security alone. Even our GK vehicles, which belong to Parliamentary Service Commission, were taken. One of them was taken in this roundabout, Mr. Speaker. Another one was picked from my house. Mr. Speaker, this misuse of power must stop. This misuse of power should stop in this country. Let us not entertain misuse of power. Whether it was applied to Tanga-Tanga, it was applied to NASA, it is being applied to Azimio, it is wrong and it should stop. This idea of some police officer sitting somewhere and looking at us attending press conferences, and then the next thing you find your security withdrawn, like they did to mine on Monday evening, just because I attended Azimio press conference. Since when did I move out of Azimio, Mr. Speaker, that I'm now being barred from attending Azimio meetings? Mr. Speaker, it is irresponsible. I have never seen irresponsibility of this nature. And Mr. Speaker, we need also to tell majority leader to realize that much as you'd hate Uhuru Kenyatta, he has been president of this country for 10 years. Mr. Speaker, it is irresponsible for majority leader who leads the government in parliament, in the National Assembly, to continuously talk derogatively about a former president. Mr. Speaker, that is something that we should not accept as a country. You cannot say that a former president has led goons. No, that is irresponsible. You can't talk like that. No.
Order.
I mean,
order, honorable members. Order, order, order. Order, honorable members. According to Honorable Jared Okello, 22 members, you said 20 or 22? 22 members have had their security withdrawn. Unfortunately, you haven't provided, Mr. Speaker, with the names because we have many members in the House. If you can care to give the names of the affected members, I'll then direct the Leader of Majority to get in touch with the Internal Security Minister to ensure that members are secure. As to members of the public, including the former Prime Minister, the former Deputy President, they certainly don't fall within Mr. Speaker's jurisdiction, and as you know. So I would again encourage you, because the Honorable Ichung'wah represents the executive in this House, forward the complaint to him, and I'll advise him to get in touch with the Minister for Security to ensure that the law is obeyed as it is, so that we don't have these problems recurring. But more importantly, honorable members, all the things you are saying boil to one thing. As responsible elected leaders in this country, tone down toxic politics. Tone down, all the honorable members, all the honorable members. It is the case and the story of a pot calling another one black. Tone down toxic politics. Conduct yourselves with decorum. You know, you carry enormous responsibility of 50 million Kenyans who have given you a rare privilege. It's not your right to be in this House. It is a privilege bestowed upon you by the people of Kenya. And when you come to this House and everywhere you go, remember that you are a public trustee carrying the responsibility of people who cannot come in this House to argue their case. And they look upon you to make sure they have peace, they are protected with their families, their properties are protected, and the laws that you pass here are obeyed and enforced against offenders in fairness as is required under the same laws. Thank you. Order, Jared, that matter is closed. What direction do you want? Yes? Yes. Give Jared Okello the mic.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the most informed ruling on this subject matter. But Honorable Speaker, we are breaking for our recess today, and on the same breath, this matter that I'm talking about transcends just the National Assembly. It also affects our members in the Senate, Honorable Speaker. And perhaps names I will give, but it may not be so comprehensive considering the fact that some of us will be out of this House within the next few hours and may not be available until the next 1 month. I think, Honorable Speaker, given your direction, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader, has known that members of this House from my political divide had their security withdrawn. I think as that, he should take up the matter as it is, without necessarily going through the names and all that. And additionally, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Okello, I think you are now veering off the track. You categorically said you know 22 members whose security was withdrawn. On your side of the House, you are close, order, Honorable Okello, you are close to 100 members plus. So it can't be anybody and everybody. It is the 22 that you talked about. And just take care and pass on the names to the majority leader, and he has said he will deal with it. So can we close it there? Yes. Yes, Nimrod Mbai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to say something about this. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak from a point of experience. I have served as a security officer, as a bodyguard to a member of this House for 5 good years. Mr. Speaker, from 2008, from 1998 to 2002. And Mr. Speaker, I want to speak from the experience of the bodyguards, of the security officers who guard us. Mr. Speaker, it's very unforgiving. It's very awkward to the officer when your boss is engaged in a riot, in demonstrations, and your seniors from the police are chasing and tear gassing your boss. Mr. Speaker, you are left in an awkward position. There is no way you can say you are a member of parliament and you go out there when you have a constable, police constable, as your escort. And at the same time, you are engaging in unlawful picketing or rioting. Then a police inspector comes to protect me, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the voice of the police officers has to be heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the voice of the escorts has to be heard. We can't leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Nimrod.
Yeah.
You can end there.
Yeah. No, Mr. Speaker, it leaves the officer in a very awkward position when you are a police constable and your boss, a police inspector, is now tear gassing the member you are escorting, the member you are guarding. Mr. Speaker, that...
Order, honorable members, you know very well that very few of you are as candid as Nimrod Mbai, who can stand before you and tell you that he was a police constable guarding a member of parliament. We must salute him for that candor. Honorable members, it tells you that every ambition is valid. Order, Honorable Mbai. Order. It's a poetic case. The guard is guarded. Thank you, Honor Nimrod, and I salute you for your effort to get to this house. Honorable members, in the Speaker's Gallery, I want to acknowledge the CUEA Law School, Langata. Is that Catholic University? Catholic University of East Africa Law School students from Langata in the Speaker's Gallery. In the public gallery, we have Homa Bay Students Association from Homa Bay Town, Homa Bay. On your behalf and on my own behalf, I welcome the students to the House of Parliament. Let's go to order number 9 and dispose it off quickly. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, Honorable Speaker, I noticed when you introduced the Catholic University students, the Honorable Babu Owino, and I know he's a young man, but when we are cheering Honorable Speaker in the House, is it?
Order, Honorable Babu Owino. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, we are a house of order and decorum. Honorable Speaker, why I rose on a point of order is because I noticed something, and is rather uncalled for, the tirade by the Honorable Babu Owino. Because it is a fact that he's a young man, and he's a young parliamentarian. And he's an example, he ought to be an example. He ought to be an example to those young students in the gallery. Honorable Speaker,
order. Kimani Ichung'wah, take your seat. Baba Owino, order, Honorable Baba Owino. Can you withdraw those unparliamentary words? You are more decent than that. Withdraw those unparliamentary. You're on record. Give him the mic.
Honorable Speaker, I withdraw, but I don't apologize.
Honorable Baba Owino, you've been a senior student leader. Those students in the gallery on the speaker's side, on the public gallery, look at all of you here as an example for mentorship and to emulate. Even in the heat of the moment, avoid using unpalatable words that your families are watching, the whole country is watching. It is not right. That matter will be closed there. Go to order number 9.
Order number 9, procedural motion, reduction of publication period for a specified bill.
Honorable Chairperson, Departmental Committee of Finance.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
We have gone to the next order, so he has hardly moved anything, so there can't be anything out of order. Go on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. For the record, I am a young person, aged 34 years of age, serving my second term, and I'm not afraid to be called a young person. I beg to move the procedural motion number 9 about reduction of publication for a period of specified bill, that pursuant to provisions of standing number 120, that this House resolved to reduce the publication period of the finance bill, the National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023, from 7 days to 6 days, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are guided in this House by our Constitution, and Article 118 talks about public access and participation. And if I would read, Honorable Speaker, that the Parliament shall conduct its business in an open manner, and sitting and those of committees shall be open to the public. Honorable Speaker, it is a consideration of the Committee of Finance and National Planning that if this is not, if we don't reduce our publication period from 7 days to 6 days, we would be disadvantaged in listening to the entire public on the matters contained in the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, this is the first finance bill of the 13th Parliament, and this is the first tax policy that are going to be passed by this Honorable House of the 13th Parliament. So it is our considered view that if this House kindly considers reduction of the publication period from 7 days to 6 days, it will give us sufficient time to listen to all members of the public and make sure that public opinion is considered in the passage of the finance bill of this financial year. In that, I beg to support, to move, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Who is seconding you?
I ask the Honorable Makilap, one of my key members in my committee, to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Makilap.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I propose the question. Order, Honorable Kainan, take your seat. I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolved to reduce the publication period of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023 from 7 days to 6 days. I'll now put the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023 from 7 days to 6 days. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, the County Government's Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the process to be followed by county governments in the exercise of their power under Article 209 and 210 of the Constitution to improve, vary, or waive taxes, fees, levies, and other charges, to establish the Interagency Transitional Committee and for connected purposes.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 11, the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the laws relating to the various taxes and duties and for matters incidental thereto.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, when I finish the ruling I'm going to deliver now, we will reorganize the order paper and go to order number 13, that in the opinion of Mr. Speaker and the majority leader who moved the motion, this motion has been sufficiently debated, and we should take steps to move a closure so that the question on it is put, and then we'll go back to order number 12. Honorable members, I have a ruling on replacement of the Deputy Minority Whip. Honorable members, you will recall that on Thursday, 13th April 2023, I issued a communication notifying the House that I had received a letter from the minority leader, the minority party through the leader of minority party, Honorable Pio Wandai, de-whipping the Honorable Sabina Chege, MP, as the Deputy Minority Whip. I also did inform the House that I had received another letter from the member of for Nakuru Town West constituency, the Honorable Samuel Arama, MP, seeking the recognition of the Jubilee Party as a parliamentary party within the meaning of the standing orders. You'll also recall, honorable members, that during the particular sitting, I made reference to two letters dated 21st September 2022, received from the Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who signed off as the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. The letters sought to notify the House of the leadership of the Jubilee Party and its nominee to the Speaker's panel outside the framework of its coalition. On account of the weight of the matter, I allowed members to make general comments to inform my guidance to the House. Honorable members, in the ensuing debate, several members, including the Leader of Majority, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, MP, the Leader of Minority Party, Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, MP, the Deputy Minority Leader, Honorable Robert Mbui, MP, the Honorable Sabina Chege, MP, the Honorable Adan Kainan, MP, the member for Eldas constituency, the Honorable Rachel Nyamai, MP, the member for Kitui South constituency, the Honorable Gadhoni Wamshomba, MP, the member for Githunguri constituency, and the Honorable Zamzam Mohammed, MP, the member for Mombasa County, and many other members spoke on the matter. Notably, honorable members, the Honorable Sabina Chege observed that her proposed removal from the position of the Deputy Minority Whip was contrary to Article 47 of the Constitution, which grants every person the right to administrative action that is lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. Additionally, the Honorable Chege was of the view that the proposed removal contravened Article 236(2)(b) of the Constitution, which requires that due process of law should precede any removal from office. Honorable members, I wish to inform the House that since reserving this matter for a considered ruling, my office has received further correspondence from the Jubilee Party, signed by the Honorable Kanin Kega as the Acting Secretary General of the party. In the correspondence, the Honorable Kega has conveyed certain changes to the leadership of the party, including the appointment of a new party leader. The letter raises issues on who the bona fide officials of the party are. I note that the letter is copied to the Registrar of Political Parties, who I trust will exercise her mandate appropriately. Honorable members, from the foregoing, I have distilled the following three issues requiring my guidance. One, whether the proposed removal of Honorable Sabina Chege as the Deputy Minority Whip is contrary to Articles 47 and 236B of the Constitution and the due process of law. Two, whether the proposed replacement of the Deputy Minority Whip complies with the standing orders of this House. And three, whether the Jubilee Party is a parliamentary party within the meaning of the standing orders. Honorable members, at this stage I shall refrain from addressing the first issue that I have isolated. This is because the issue touches on matters falling partly within the mandate of the House and partly within the mandate of other competent constitutional and statutory bodies. These bodies include the judiciary, the political parties disputes tribunal, and the internal dispute resolution mechanisms of political parties and coalitions. Honorable members, the centrality of the Bill of Rights is in the architecture of our Constitution cannot be gainsaid. Indeed, human rights are one of the national values and principles of governance under Article 10 of the Constitution. Article 47 of the Constitution on the right to fair administrative action, and Article 236(2)(b), of the Constitution, which requires the due process of law to be followed before the removal of a hold of an office, finds their basis in the Bill of Rights. These rights accrue, honorable members, don't worry about that. These rights accrue to every person, including members of this House, and cannot be limited except in the manner provided for under Article 24 of the Constitution. Honorable members, whereas Article 22 and Article 165 of the Constitution confer the exclusive jurisdiction to determine the question of whether a right or a fundamental freedom in the Bill of Rights has been violated, Article 3 of the Constitution obligates the Speaker to uphold, defend, and respect the Constitution. It is noteworthy that under Article 20 of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights binds all state organs and persons. Pursuant to Article 21 of the Constitution, every state organ is under a duty to observe, respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights. In this regard, where a question arises touching on the possible violation of a member's fundamental right or freedom, the Speaker cannot fold his arms and fail to act in blindness of the express requirements of the provisions of the Constitution and that I have cited. However, honorable members, I have observed earlier, addressing this issue exhaustively requires the involvement of other competent constitutional and statutory bodies besides the Speaker. Whereas the Speaker may make interim interventions to facilitate the continuity of the business of the House, the final interpretation and enforcement of the rights and freedoms lies with the judiciary, as outlined under Article 165 of the Constitution. Honorable members, on the second issue, I note that Standing Order 20A4 provides that a decision of a parliamentary party replacing its whip or deputy whip shall be communicated to Speaker in writing. In the case of the minority party, the decision is to be communicated by the leader of the minority party. Please note the emphasis of the standing orders on the use of the word replacing. Further, Standing Order 20A5 obligates the Speaker to convey the decision of a party to replace its whip or deputy whip as soon as practicable following receipt of the decision. Members at the door, take your seats. Take the nearest seat. Take the nearest seat, honorable member. Thank you. Further, Standing Order 20A5 obligates the Speaker to convey the decision. I had read that. Honorable members, in most multi-party democracy, jurisdictions all the world over, party discipline is key to the very existence of political parties. It may rightly be said that without party discipline, the functionality of political parties and multi-party democracy would be prejudiced. Permit me to note that Standing Order 20A finds its basis in Article 4.2 of the Constitution, which establishes Kenya as a multi-party democracy. Additionally, paragraphs 4 and 5 of the Standing Order on replacement of party whips are in line with the democratic right of parliamentary parties to enforce party discipline of its members as provided for in the Political Parties Act 2011. Honorable members, from a close reading of Standing Order 20A4 and 5, it is evidently clear that the Azimio La Umoja One coalition is fully entitled to discipline its members and to determine the composition of its leadership in this House. The only condition to the exercise of this right is that it has to follow the process prescribed under the Standing Order 20A. Excuse me again. Honourable members, I have a bit of cold, so bear with me. Standing Order 20A. Pardon? Yes. 20A. Honourable members, during yesterday's afternoon sitting, the leader of the minority party submitted that the Speaker should not be seen as interfering with the manner in which a parliamentary party elects to organize its affairs. I cannot agree more and have no intention of interfering with any party. Indeed, honourable members, this is the accepted practice, particularly in the Commonwealth. Honourable members, an examination of precedents from parliaments in comparative jurisdictions lends itself to the adoption of a delicate approach in resolving internal party matters in the chamber of the House. In New Zealand, the arrangements for the appointment of whips are internal matters for the respective parties to determine on condition that the Speaker is advised of the appointment of whips. This is from the Parliament of New Zealand, Standing Order 35(1)B. Similarly, in South Africa, the National Assembly of South Africa was recently confronted with a leadership and decision-making dispute in the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania Party. In the matter, PSC had one seat in the National Assembly which was filled by the nomination of a certain Honorable Nzwanele Nyoto, who had already been sworn in as the party's representative in the House. Subsequently, honourable members, a dispute arose within PAC, or PSC, regarding its leadership, and there was uncertainty about communicating the membership of Honorable Nyonso and consequently who should represent the party in the National Assembly. The guidance provided to the House by the Speaker was as follows, and I quote, "The Speaker has no authority to adjudicate internal party disputes about membership to the National Assembly or its leadership. Neither the Speaker nor the House gets involved in political party matters. It is neither for the Speaker nor a House of Parliament to decide which is the legitimate leadership structure of a political party. It would be incorrect for either the Speaker or the House to recognize one structure as the legitimate leadership of a political party, the PSC, over another." Honourable members, you'll agree with me that the foregoing guidance of the Speaker of the South African Parliament is relevant to the questions that confront us today, including the question which formation of the Azimio coalition of the Jubilee Party the Speaker should recognize in this House. Honourable members, The determination of political party disputes is best left to the competent authorities outside Parliament as envisaged by law. This House passed the Political Parties Act, whose provisions you are all aware of. The House, or indeed the Speaker, ought not to be called upon to arbitrate party matters. In the case of party leadership in the House, the Speaker only communicates party decisions as received through the authorized persons. It should not be lost to us that the question of who the authorized persons are with respect to the Jubilee Party is one of the issues lingering. Honorable members, party whips are and have been an invaluable cog to the continuity of parliamentary business. Erskine and May, a renowned authority on parliamentary procedure, notes that, and I quote, "The efficient and smooth running of the parliamentary machine depends largely upon the whips." Erskine May further outlines the nature of the duties undertaken by whips that makes them deserving of this lofty status, and in this regard, Erskine May also notes, and I quote, "Certain duties are common to whips of all parties: to keep their members supplied with information about the business of the House, to secure the attendance of members, to arrange, when possible, for those of their members who cannot attend divisions to pair with others on the opposite side of the House so that their votes might not be lost, to suggest members to serve on general and certain select committees, to act as intermediaries between the leaders and the parliamentary membership of their parties in order to keep each informed of the views of the other." Honorable members, this authority creates a very strong nexus between facilitation of the business of the House and the office of the whip or the deputy whip. In this regard, I am of the considered view that the standing orders of the National Assembly are deliberately worded to ensure continuity of parliamentary business. A close reading of Standing Order 20A leads to the inescapable conclusion that once a parliamentary party has designated a whip or a deputy whip, the only subsequent change that the parliamentary party may make with regard to the two positions is a replacement of the person designated as a whip or deputy whip. Honorable members, according to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, the word replace means to remove someone or something and put another person or thing in their place. It therefore follows that a replacement has two components: the act of removal and the act of substitution, which must happen simultaneously. Honorable members, in the current scenario, the minority party has conveyed its decision seeking to remove one of its leaders without simultaneously offering a substitution. The letter by the minority party only partially meets the express requirements of the standing orders. Honorable members, the Speaker is also confronted by several correspondence from a constituent party of the minority party that is currently facing its own internal disputes. Any Speaker would be highly constrained to facilitate the continuity of the business of the House in an environment which raises pertinent questions that cannot be ignored, including: 1, should the Speaker ignore correspondence that affects the rights of members who collectively meet the threshold to constitute a parliamentary party? 2, should the Speaker take cognizance of the President of the House on access to pre-election and post-election coalition agreements affecting its leadership? Honorable members, to my mind, the matters at hand cannot be conclusively resolved without affording the affected parties adequate time to comply with the procedural requirements outlined in the standing orders. The affected parties basically have to put their affairs in order. The National Assembly is a house of order. Consequently, the minority side and the Jubilee Party must organize their affairs and also endeavor to appear organized. As per the calendar, honorable members, as per the calendar, the House is scheduled to adjourn at the end of the sitting today for the May recess. I'm inclined that we allow the minority party and the Jubilee party 30 days within which to put their affairs in order. By the time the House resumed from the recess, it is my expectation that my office shall be in receipt of communication from the minority party, replacing its minority whip, if they so wish, in the manner contemplated under Standing Order 20A. Honorable members, the third issue for determination is whether the Jubilee Party is a parliamentary party within the meaning of the standing orders. You will recall that in his letter seeking the recognition of the Jubilee Party as a parliamentary party, the Honorable Samuel Aram observed that Article 36 of the Constitution on Freedom of Association and Article 38 of the Constitution on Political Rights confers upon each member of the House the right to determine which entities they wish to be associated with and the right to make political choices. Honorable members, Standing Order 2 defines a parliamentary party as a party recognized by the Speaker as a parliamentary party pursuant to Standing Order 20A, recognition of parliamentary parties and designation of leaders and whips. Standing Order 20A1 provides that the Speaker shall recognize a party or coalition of parties consisting of not less than 5% of the membership of the National Assembly as a parliamentary party. Honorable members, 5% of the membership of the National Assembly is 18 members. From the records that the House has and the Speaker's office has, the membership of the Jubilee Party in the National Assembly comprises 28 members. 28. In this regard, and pursuant to Standing Order 2 and 20A1, the Jubilee Party meets the threshold to be recognized as a parliamentary party. Whereas the Jubilee Party meets the threshold to be recognized as a parliamentary party, however, I am hesitant to invoke the provisions given the myriad correspondence received from the party with respect to its leadership and the persons authorized to communicate on its behalf to the Speaker. Honorable members, in summary, my guidance is as follows. 1, that the communication received from the minority party with regard to the replacement of the Honorable Sabina Chege as the deputy minority whip is incomplete and therefore does not comply with the requirements of the Standing Order 20A of the National Assembly's standing orders. 2, that I hereby grant the minority party a period of 30 days from today within which to convey appropriate communication on the replacement of its minority whip if it wishes. 3, that whereas the Jubilee Party meets the threshold to be recognized as a parliamentary party pursuant to Standing Order 20A1, I am hesitant to invoke this provision given the myriad correspondence received from the party with respect to its leadership and persons authorized to communicate on its behalf to the Speaker. I also give them a similar time to put their house in order. Honorable members, I take this decision conscious of the fact that as your Speaker, my duty is to uphold the Constitution, any law, and the standing orders to the extent to which they relate to the management of the business of the House. It is not the duty of the Speaker to be involved in the management of the internal affairs of any political party, and the Speaker does not wish to do so. I thank you. Yes, Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that ruling. Mr. Speaker, I do agree with a lot of the things that you've said, but Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that you yourself has confirmed that our standing orders, Article 20, is very clear about the removal, and the word you have used is the word replacement. Mr. Speaker, the minute a process begins, and part of that process has already been implemented by the coalition, I'm surprised that that does not meet the standards of removal, because replacement starts with removal. So, Mr. Speaker, I am a bit concerned about the ruling, because, Mr. Speaker, we are going now on a recess. And, Mr. Speaker, you've seen that we've been sitting here, a few of us. And you know that in the recess period, Mr. Speaker, we will still be transacting the business of the Azimio coalition. And we require the whips to be able to assist us. Mr. Speaker, why don't you please allow that we be given an opportunity to look for the replacement because we have already communicated the removal. You allow us that we give the replacement if possible today, but allow us the removal because that is what we communicated, Mr. Speaker. That is all we are asking, that you allow the removal and then allow us an opportunity to provide the replacement, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mbui, the ruling is very clear. I have given you a clear direction. Go and make the correct communication. And I've given you the period within which you are in recess. And the ruling of the Speaker is not subject to debate and will not be qualified. Thank you. Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You are about to comment on something you didn't hear.
No, well, I had a substantial part of the communication as Speaker. I was standing there. You did notice me. I was from some other meeting to do with the bipartisan engagements.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, what the gist of your ruling has got two legs. One, if I heard you correctly, is that...
You have a duty to hear me correctly.
Yes, is that the Azimio coalition needs to go back and put its house in order. That is one. And two, that relax, Honorable Chepkonga. Just relax. And the two is that under the standing order 20.
Sorry, there's a point of order from...
But I'm on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
No, you are not on a point of order. I just gave you time to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know that's why you said the minority leader was not here. So he is seeking to comment on something that he did not hear. Mr. Speaker, what he is saying, you never said. You never said. He says he had 50%. So the other 50% he never had. So he is misleading himself. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I note my very good friend, Mr. Honorable Mbui, and both of them, Mr. Speaker. I know they are not lawyers. In the strict terms, once a ruling has been given by a court of law, and as you know, Mr. Speaker, you have the powers of that of a high court. One is the high court, one is the judge has delivered a ruling. If you are unhappy, Mr. Speaker, you can go and appeal, but there is no appeal here, Mr. Speaker. You cannot sit on an appeal. You cannot sit on an appeal on your ruling, Mr. Speaker.
You are right.
And you know, Mr. Speaker, you are a very respectable lawyer. You should not allow anybody to comment on your ruling at all. In fact, you should rule them out of order. Mr. Speaker, this will be the first one in the Commonwealth where the ruling of a speaker has been appealed on and the speaker himself is sitting on an appeal. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't happen. In the common law. It doesn't happen.
Order, honorable members. The honorable Chepkonga is right, but I've given Honorable Wandai. I believe that you are not challenging the ruling. Neither are you.
You know, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I have been in this house now. This is my third term. The Honorable Chepkonga had the misfortune of missing the last term, so he needs to relax. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
My point was.
Make your point.
My point was that on the second matter of my communication to you with regard to the replacement of the deputy minority whip not being complete. The Speaker, with all due respect, we have a difficulty agreeing with that position. But be that as it may, the Speaker, that as it may, the Speaker, once we initiate the process of replacement of our deputy minority whip, understanding Order 20A, it would have been advisable that you confirm First, the removal of the Honorable Sabina Chegi.
Order, Honorable
To
Wandai.
give us opportunity to make her replacement form.
Order, Honorable Wandai. Order. Take your seat, please. The ruling has been very clear. It needs no interpretation. The wording of the standing order is plain English. It talks of replacement. Your letter talks of removal. Removal is not replacement. Replacement is to take out one and put in the other. I have said that very clearly. And your right to do that has not been taken away. And you will not be engaged in either analyzing, that you can do out there in the coffee shop, but not on the floor. Analyzing the ruling of the Speaker, that is not allowed under standing orders. Challenging the ruling of the Speaker, that is not allowed. And in any case, you have said you only had part of it. I'll avail the whole of it to you to read and understand it, and then you can make your comment. You can write to me if you wish. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me begin by congratulating you on that otherwise Solomonic ruling. Honorable Speaker, it's clear that as much, Honorable Speaker, that you are not in this House when we enacted these standing orders, Honorable Speaker. If I can allow those walking out to do so quietly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Go on, Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I was congratulating you for having interpreted these standing orders and appreciating that you are not a member and you are not the Speaker in this House when we enacted these standing orders in the last revision in the last Parliament. But, Honorable Speaker, as you've said, Standing Order 20A4 is quite clear that a decision of parliamentary party replacing its whip or deputy whip shall be communicated to the Speaker in writing. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, that is the right interpretation. Honorable Speaker, I just want to draw reference or equate this to a football match. When you substitute or you replace a player, you do not remove and do not put in another player to play. And therefore, that was a gist of this Standing Order 20A4, that you shall not remove without replacement, but you shall replace, as is akin in football matches where you substitute a player. Therefore, either the minority or the majority, if the majority wants to replace their leader of majority or their deputy whip or their whip, we replace, we do not remove. And Honorable Speaker, it's also true that power abhors vacuums. And what we are being asked to do is to remove and leave a vacuum, Honorable Speaker. And I really want to ask our colleagues, Honorable Speaker, to be patient and exercise patience. You have already said, Honorable Speaker, that nothing stops them, even tomorrow, from writing to you and express their desire to replace any member, be it in a committee or in their leadership. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I just want to implore our colleagues to exercise patience, to also conduct the affairs of this House with less emotions, Honorable Speaker. Only yesterday, Honorable Speaker, when the Honorable Leader of Minority raised that issue on the floor. I remember, Honorable Speaker, when you tried to stop him in his tracks because he was doing it at the wrong time, the Leader of Minority became very emotional. The Honorable Atandi uttered some unpalatable words, just like I've heard the Honorable Rosa Buyu utter today, like the Honorable Babu Owino was trying to do. Honorable Speaker, we need to conduct this House with some decorum, Honorable Speaker, including when you want to raise a point of order, you do not shout from your seat. You invite the Speaker's attention, Honorable Speaker. And for instance, Honorable Speaker, when I invited your attention, is on a matter also touching on the decorum here in the House, that when you recognize students who ought to be emulating us as leaders and as their role models, we have a tradition and a culture in this House when you want to cheer, you foot thump, Honorable Speaker, but not bang tables, Honorable Speaker. and that is the matter I had wanted to raise about the Honorable Babu Owino. Honorable Speaker, I just want to implore on our colleagues in the minority, please, as the Honorable Speaker has ruled in his communication, put your house in order. We do pray, Honorable Speaker, as much as we are also hurt, because, Honorable Speaker, you know, I was a ranking member in the Jubilee Party, and a founder member of Jubilee. And therefore, I still have a bit of feelings for my friends in Jubilee.
It's called nostalgia.
Some nostalgia, Honorable Speaker, honestly. I am very nostalgic about Jubilee, because we had great plans for this country under Jubilee, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I had hoped also, Honorable Speaker, that you would, in your ruling, communicate that you recognize Jubilee Party as a distinct parliamentary political party, which they qualify under Standing Order 20A1, Honorable Speaker, because they have already achieved that threshold. But as hurt as I am, as nostalgic as I am about Jubilee, my former party, Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with you that we also give Jubilee, our old party, time to resolve their leadership issues.
I've also given them 30 days.
The 30 days, and ask our colleagues in ODM, just be as gracious as we have been, be as gracious as the party leader in Jubilee, Honorable Sabina Shege, has been, to wait for that 30 days period to resolve the issues in Jubilee. I pray and hope that even within the Azimio coalition, you will be able to resolve the issues that are within your coalition, so that we engage here as leaders who can engage on the basis of the policies that we espouse for those of us who are in government, and you in the opposition or in the minority, on the basis of the alternative policies that you espouse, that you will sell to the people of Kenya as a better alternative, and that we can only do when we engage in this House. And engage, again, Honorable Speaker, I say, without being too emotional, without being insultive even to the person of the Speaker, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I do want to give notice that I will be moving a motion when we resume to name the Honorable member for Atandi, Samuel Atandi, over what happened yesterday, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, just as I was raising the issue of Babu Owino, we ought to be a house where we conduct business with decorum. And on occasion, Honorable Speaker, myself and Honorable Pukose will point to issues where we are going out of order, Honorable Speaker. And I must thank even the Honorable Otiende Amolo. I've seen him being very keen when he sees the Honorable Didmas Barasa not dressed properly. He raises those issues because that is how we protect the dignity of this House. But when we start shouting at the Speaker, when we start calling the Speaker unpalatable names from where we are sitting, simply because we are on Hansard, we are not on Hansard, when the Honorable Babu Owino starts shouting there that he is not my girlfriend, and honestly, Honorable Speaker, I cannot be admiring a man under any circumstances. And even if I was to admire anybody, not the likes of Babu Owino. There are enough women in this country to admire. I cannot be in the business of admiring men. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge all our colleagues, let us, I take this ruling, Honorable Speaker, with some heart, Honorable Speaker. But I do agree with you. You have no business as the Speaker of the House in micromanaging any political party, be it Jubilee, be it Azimio, be it UDA, where I belong to, or even your former party, Ford Kenya. The moment you resigned as a party leader of Ford Kenya, the members of Ford Kenya who sit in the Kenya Kwanza coalition, you cannot, as Speaker, now micromanage those speakers. And I want to agree, Honorable Speaker, that it is within your rights to allow our colleagues within the minority to put their house in order. And I want to wish them all the best as we go on recess, that they will be able to put their house in order and come and give up formidable opposition here and even outside, but not in the streets, here and outside in other engagements. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
John Badi.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to congratulate you for this ruling. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very clear, elaborate ruling, which in my view need not to be contested in any way. I mean, if we have to be objective, this is an objective ruling from the seat of the Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to mention that what Honorable Ichung'wah has talked about regarding Jubilee, I think the standing order is clear.
Yes.
That the deputy whip of the minority cannot be Jubilee. Minority is Azimio coalition. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for allowing Azimio coalition time to do a replacement, because management of political parties is left for political parties and the leadership of political parties. But I want to thank you and congratulate you, Mr. Speaker, for this ruling. You are spot on, and I agree with you totally and entirely. But, Mr. Speaker, something else that I wanted to mention is, I think, Mr. Speaker, much as we disagree, let us be a honorable House. Much as we disagree, there are some words that we should not use in this House. It should not be allowed, whether from the majority or from the minority side. We need to respect ourselves first, because there are some words, when you use them here, it's a clear indication of lack of respect to self.
Yes.
And I would not want to participate or sit in a house where people don't respect themselves. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it is high time that you become a little bit harsh as the chair. Because, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of that, then clearly, we lose it as a House. And, Mr. Speaker, whether it came from this side or that side, it is equally bad. So, and majority leader and minority leader, kindly lead us with, please show the example to all of us. Show us example by first behaving with decorum. Then the rest of us will follow. But sometimes, Mr. Speaker, the problem I have with my friend Kimani Ichung'wah, and you know he's a young man, he's far much younger than me, and he's my friend, and I've been mentoring him, but sometimes he veers off the rail. He's now my leader in the House, but he knows that I'm his leader. I came here before he came. I went to school before him. I became an accountant before him. So, Mr. Speaker, in all aspects, he has a lot to learn from me.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker, it's giving me the image that I'm training someone who is untrainable. I have been training the majority leader for a very long time. I want him to lead this House, Mr. Speaker, on a serious matter. You lead this House. You are the majority leader of the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya, including those of us who are in the minority. You are the leader. In fact, you are second in command to the Speaker in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, henceforth, I would want to see a total paradigm shift from Kimani Ichung'wah as the majority leader of this House. Let them lead us, and Honorable Wandai as minority leader, to be here most of the time. Yes, let them lead us. We need leadership in this House. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to stop.
Robert Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Based on past practices in this House, normally once a Speaker has delivered a ruling, you cannot be able to appeal directly, but you're allowed to make some comments.
Yes.
And in these comments, Honorable Speaker, I expected the minority leader to be magnanimous enough, agree with your ruling, and be able to even stay in this House to listen, because in the first place, he did not listen even the first part of the Speaker's ruling. He was not even in touch with what the Speaker had ruled. And after making his comments, and I think Honorable Mbadi, in the first parliament, we used to have Chakoyo Midio here, and Honorable Chakoyo Midio would sit throughout all the rulings. Then you came in the 12th parliament, and you would sit here and listen to all the rulings, and you'll even discuss across with Honorable Duale and consult. That is actually a missing link that we are now observing in this House. where the minority leader is too emotional. You know, we need this house to be sober. We need this house, we need leadership from also him as a leader of the minority. He's the leader of the alternative government in the house. And therefore, he's not just carrying his own personal emotions. Because for the past, he's been making here comments that are almost personal. Yes. That should not be the case. So, Honorable Speaker, those are my observations, and I think we need to learn from each other and respect each side of the House. Thank you.
Lillian Kogo. I'll give you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. And the ruling which you have made, Honorable Speaker, is facts on sheet. You've talked about wordings that are on the standing orders that guide this House. So it implores all of us to listen. And as has already been said by those who have spoken ahead of me, Honorable Speaker, this should be a house of order and respect, honor, dignity, an august house. And I had mentioned this earlier, Honorable Speaker, and I like it when ranking member of parliament in the person of the Honorable Mbadi gives his advice as a member to his brother and majority leader. But I also wonder, Honorable Speaker, because more often than not, I realize that the majority speaker has the space to speak whatever time he wishes and on whatever matter and for whatever length of time. But it is sad, Honorable Speaker, that the majority leader speaks on anything and everything. Scarcity creates value. How I wish that on certain matters, the Honorable Ichung'wah would go without mentioning names of members as the majority leader. Because you're dealing with members of parliament who are also politicians. And when they are adversely mentioned in the House, Honorable Speaker, they are bound to answer. And this is what creates chaos. If we would have our majority leader and our minority leader sit together, I think this House would take better direction in terms of its debate and our responsibilities to the nation. I thank you, Speaker.
Morogara. I'll give you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Have a minute each, please.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to laud your ruling. I have listened to it carefully, to every word you have actually pronounced, and I got to say I was in agreement fully in all matters of fact and in all matters of law. We cannot appeal against that ruling. I doubt whether we can even seek a review unless there are cogent grounds upon which we can do so. When it comes to decorum of the House, it is vitally important that we actually sustain the dignity of the House at all times. Of late, we have had members who are actually shouting and the printables across the aisle. And this is dangerous. It must be discouraged because at all times, we must preserve your seat. You are the seat of parliament.
Okay, Kainan. 1 minute, so compose your words quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been in the past parliament. This ruling, I will say, is a Solomonic ruling. I may not agree with every bit of it because as Jubilee, we expected you to declare as a parliamentary party.
I've given you 30 days.
But you have given us 30 days.
Yes.
That 30 days, and I want to apply to the mind of my good friend, the Honorable Wandai, that 30 days does not apply to Jubilee alone. Even Azimio must put its house in order, and Jubilee is one of the constituent parties that Azimio or ODM, by that extension, will not be allowed to dominate. Mr. Speaker, what I want to say is this. The reason why we are called August House is because this is a house of respect. This is a house of tolerance. This is a house of traditions. And therefore, each one of us must subscribe to this very tenet and respect the office of the Speaker. You have done something unprecedented. This is the first time I'm seeing the decision of the Speaker being discussed. I hope this is not going to lead us to something else that is going to be unprecedented. And finally, what I want to say is this. We as Jubilee, and Mr. Speaker, the ruling will have its own interpretation. My interpretation, now that you have opened this, that Azimio must put its house in order and accept the concerns of Jubilee. Jubilee as a consensus party.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable members, I want us to end here so that we go to other business. I just want to echo the words of Honorable Mbadi and the seniors in this house, Kainan, Mbadi, and those who have done at least 3 years and above, that this house will be remembered because of your conduct. You will go down in history as either a member of parliament who came to this house, clowned yourself for 5 years, and then walked away. And Wananchi are watching. I want to encourage the seniors from this side, particularly Honorable Mbande, Honorable Otienda Amolo, senior lawyer, implore upon your leadership to give a little more time to the house and to give a little more respect to the conduct of business in the house. And Mbadi, you are spot on. I stand here as a father figure to many, many of you because of the longevity of my stay in this house. I first came to this house in 1992. And as a very young person, I sat on the speaker's panel. And I hit the ground running, learning how to run the house. I sat on this chair in the presence of greats like the late President Mwai Kibaki, the late George Saitot, the late Wamalwa Kijana, the late Mzee Moi, the late Wamalwa Kijana, Mudi Awori, Professor Rashid Mzee, Paul Mwite, and many others, including now the departed Mutiso. The Honorable Raila Odinga, we walked in this house for the first time on the same day. Mercurial debaters like James Orengo and many others. And at no time, President William Ruto found me here, and we worked together. I want to encourage you members. This journey is long, and you'll pass through some very slippery grounds. Sometimes you may think you know everything when you know nothing. And that is what gets us off the rails. Leadership is a privilege. It's not a right. And when we come to this house, Mbandi, keep on talking to our colleagues in the manner you did, that here, when you are given an opportunity to lead, please lead. I have been extremely courteous to every member, and I will continue doing so, but we will try to enforce the rules of the House. There are 3 or 4 members I have noted who are taking for granted the magnanimity of the chair, and that is not right. I saw one member yesterday confront the honorable member for Dagoretti North to ask her why she's sitting here when the rest have gone out. It is not your duty as a member to picket members out of the house. Every member is here on their own right. Honorable Otienda Amolo is here to represent the people of Rarieda, and that responsibility is not shared unless he wants to share it himself. Because at the end of the day, you answer questions to the people who cast the vote for you. And I want to encourage us that the length we have been here, even if we are slow at learning, we learned something. And it's good to listen when we tell you what to do. I'll administer this house without any fear or favor and with absolute fairness. We want a house that everybody out there looks at in admiration. That's why you have a host of students who come here sitting in the gallery. When your students who are your children sit up there and hear the words that the Honorable Babu Wino uttered here on the floor, they shudder. They shudder. And I want to encourage Honorable Mbadi, Honorable Tienda Molo, Honorable Kainan, you are the seniors. Talk to these young colleagues and tell them that sometimes you may be quick to answer, quick to speak, but the good book of the Lord, the Bible says, always be quick to listen and slow to answer. You will be able to get away with many things. Next order. Kaluma, I'm told you are also senior.
Order number that.
And I acknowledge that. Next order.
Order number 13, motion. General debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders.
The mover of this motion, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I beg to reply to the motion on the general debate on the proposal to consider the constitutional amendments and our own standing orders, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you did mention, we have indeed interacted with this motion for the better part of this session, and indeed even went ahead to amend the standing orders, and that is why in the last 3 weeks we have been able to have cabinet secretaries in plenary, and this is part of the issues that we were in this particular motion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm also aware, and I had an engagement this morning with the Cabinet Secretary Aisha Jumwa, the former Member of Parliament for Malindi, on the question of the 2/3 gender rule, and I am aware that all our women parliamentarians have been keenly following this debate, and indeed following the work that is also going on elsewhere in the executive and with parts of our civil society. And I did attend a forum by our women parliamentarians at Radisson Blue Hotel sometime last month, but one, Honorable Speaker, on this question of the 2/3 gender rule. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, as much as we did even establish the ad hoc committee, I want to plead with those members under the chairmanship of Honorable Chepkonga and the other leaders in the Senate to ensure that you now embark on the real work of ensuring that the 2/3 gender rule question is now resolved and constitutionally, and also the issue of creation of the office of the leader of official opposition. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, as the Honorable John Buddy has said, as you have said, it is time that we got good and courageous leadership in the House, leadership that will not abrogate their responsibilities by walking out of the House. We need leaders who will be able to lead the opposition and the minority side, whether they are outside the House or inside the House. And that's why I strongly support this proposal to create the office of the leader of official opposition, Honorable Speaker, because this gives the country an opportunity to hear those alternative policies and ideas that could be alternatives to the government that is in office at any particular time. And Honorable Speaker, as many members said when they were contributing to this debate, the office of the leader of official opposition is not being created for any particular individual. This is an office that is being created for posterity, to deepen and enhance our democracy, Honorable Speaker. And I want to appeal to the ad hoc committee members here and those in the Senate to indeed work with utmost speed to ensure that we get constitutional amendment bills before the House when we resume for the next session of this, the next part of this session, Honorable Speaker, of this 13th Assembly, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I did mention, the question of the 2/3 gender rule, Honorable Speaker, is something that we have tried over the years and failed almost close to 4 times. I want to believe, Honorable Speaker, now with the goodwill that I listened to as all members contributed, both here in the Senate, Honorable Speaker, that we will see the realization or the actualization of this 2/3 gender rule in this 13th Assembly. Honorable Speaker, on the question of NGCDF, I know, Honorable Speaker, and I'm aware that there are still court cases before our judiciary. And even as those go on, Honorable Speaker, it is important that we entrench our NGCDF funds in the Constitution so that in future, neither the GAF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, NGCDF, or even the proposed Senate Oversight Fund will ever be challenged in court on the basis of those funds being unconstitutional. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, let me just join what the Speaker was saying in imploring on all of us as leaders that as much as we want to create other offices like that of the leader of official opposition, Honorable Speaker, and in line with what the Honorable Speaker has done in his ruling, asking on our minority side to put their house in order, and even our old party Jubilee, that even those of us who have, serve now in the minority and enjoy that rare privilege of leading those in the minority, and congratulate many of these members in the minority who never followed their leadership in staging a walkout. Honorable Speaker, as the Speaker and as Honorable John Buddy has said, let us lead from the front. Let us come to this house because we are paid, Honorable Speaker, by our constituents. Even those of us who are leaders, we enjoy a responsibility allowance as leaders to lead the rest of the teams, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, there is no time I will ever walk out of this chamber because I do not agree either with the Speaker or with a colleague in the minority. And even some of the issues that have been raised, for instance, by the Honorable member for, not Rarieda, the Honorable member, what's her name, that lady? I've forgotten her name, Honorable Speaker. Lydian Gogo, Honorable Speaker. There's absolutely nothing with a member mentioning the Honorable Zamzam by name. My name is mentioned in this house every now and then. Every member of parliament from the minority who wants to make their name out there, in their speech, they must mention the name of Kimani Ichung'wah or the leader of majority. And I allow them, and I don't get emotional about it. I bear a lot of insults from the minority, and I take it in my stride. I want to implore on the leadership in the minority to also have the patience and the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with both the membership that they are leading and even the membership on the side that I lead. And we exercise patience and that emotional intelligence to be able to decipher what is for this floor, what is for out there in the rallies, what is for the streets, and what is for the corridors of parliament, even as we ask that we all conduct ourselves with utmost dignity. Those throwing of barbs at the Speaker are things that we should never entertain, Honorable Speaker. So that even when we create this office of the leader of official opposition, we want this to be a respectable office. Whoever that leader will be, whether it is our good friend, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, whether it is our good friend, the Honorable Raila Odinga, whether it is the Honorable John Buddy who will take up that position of the leader of official opposition, we must, or the Honorable Kaluma, or indeed the Honorable Karoli Omondi, a seasoned businessman and a respectable leader from Suba, who can lead the minority. If he takes up that position, we want to be able to hold him with esteem and respect. But respect, again, is two-way. And therefore, I want to ask that if you demand respect, you must also respect others. If you demand to be treated well, you must also treat others well. And therefore, I want to pray that as we conclude this debate on this motion, as I reply, Honorable Speaker, we will have time during the recess to have the ad hoc committee. The Honorable Chepkonga did inform me that they are scheduled to sit today. And that is why I even sought the Speaker's indulgence to reorder business so that we close this debate and allow the ad hoc committee and the other interest groups that are interested in this matter to engage on all the items from NGCDF, NGAF, Senate oversight, to the leader of official opposition, to the two-thirds gender rule. And I know, Madam Speaker, you are very keen on this. You had a bill that we indeed requested you, and you are gracious enough to allow us time to be able to debate this. And I want to assure you, Madam Speaker, that we will push this ad hoc committee to see to it that we come to realize the actualization of that two-thirds gender rule. Because this House, with all the beautiful ladies here, Honorable Speaker, and many more who would join, is richer, and our democracy is richer. Our gracious ladies, I think, exercise more emotional intelligence than many of us men who tend to be forceful and insultive at each other. But our ladies, being mothers and being our sisters, are more gracious, and therefore our democracy will only be better and richer having more women participate in leadership positions, even as we mentor our young ladies, our young girls who come to this house, be it from Catholic University, be it those young student leaders who came from Homa Bay Town constituency, represented by the Honorable Kaluma, who, as the Speaker noted, is also serving not just as a senior leader, but also serving in the Speaker's panel. And I pray to God that he will be able to emulate the Speaker. And maybe at some point in the future, he will be the first member of parliament from Homa Bay County to serve as Speaker of the National Assembly or the Senate at some time in the future. I said National Assembly or the Senate, not Homa Bay County Assembly. Honorable Speaker,
We'll put the question at the later time. So let's move to the next order.
Order number 12. Order number 12, motion, consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies.
We shall resume debate on this. The Honorable Joseph Makilap, member for Baringo North. Not there. The Honorable John Kiarie, member for Dagoretti.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was very keen to speak to an earlier issue, but the matter on the floor is of concern to every member of parliament. And the issue of CDF is a matter I would like to put my voice to, because, Madam Speaker, any member here will tell you the import of this fund called National Government NGCDF. And in fact, if there is any one thing that this House should do, this House should actually take up CDF to the level of CDF 2.0. It is the Honorable Karue who brought up a fund that has become a spectacle in this country, and even internationally. People are recognizing that there is a way that you can devolve funds to the farthest part of the country and it becomes effective. Madam Speaker, in the life of this parliament, we must seek to see how we can bring up CDF to a level where it becomes a leading light, even for the people who are running counties, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, juxtaposition has been done over and over again, that if you go to your constituency and you compare the amount of monies that are coming to your constituency in terms of CDF, and compare the same in terms of the monies that come to the constituency through devolved funds in the county, Madam Speaker, it is like heaven and hell. It is like a day and night, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I do want to imagine that this House shall take advantage of the matter that has been brought to the House to not only debate it as a miscellaneous amendment, but when we get to the third reading, Madam Speaker, for us to put in good bills that will bring us to CDF 2.0, where we not only establish it in the law, but also build it up in terms of the monies that are allocated as a percentage to the national budget, so that, Madam Speaker, this good fund can keep doing the good things that it does in the constituencies. I do appreciate this opportunity, Madam Speaker, and I do support.
Yes, what's your point of order, Honorable Okello?
Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity. Just a little while back, I raised an issue of withdrawal of security by the police, and I was directed by the Speaker to do a letter to the majority leader so that he can pursue issues of reinstatement of security to those who have been affected like myself. And Honorable Speaker, I want to go public now as I deliver the letter to our majority leader, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Please receive your letter.
What's your point of order, Majority Leader?
A point of order is not a point of order.
Honorable Speaker, I know I appreciate the Honorable Jared Okello, is it Okello? Okello's attempt, but the Honorable Jared Okello knows that the leader of majority is a constitutional office with an office. And therefore, these theatrics and drama are truly unnecessary in the House, Honorable Speaker, and I want to request that you do order him completely out of order, and if he has letters or parcels to deliver them to my office, to the office of the leader of majority, and it will be duly attended to.
I'm sure that's duly noted. The Honorable Member for Molo, Honorable Kuria Kimani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I stand here to support the general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider on the issue of the report by NGCDF, the audit report as per our standing orders. Honorable Speaker, I have stated at the floor of this House that I am a product of NGCDF. Madam Speaker, when I cleared my class 8 at Mwange Buchige Primary School in Mukinyai and got admitted to join a national school, my grandfather who brought me up could not afford to pay school fees for me for the school that I was admitted to go. And as a result, Madam Speaker, I found myself at Kieni Secondary School, a mixed-day secondary school at Kiringero, Subukia, in Subukia constituency. Madam Speaker, even with that admission to a district day mixed secondary school, we couldn't still afford the school fees for that school. My villagers had to do a fundraise, and I remember one we call her Shosho Virginia, who really contributed her everything because she didn't have a child of her own to take me to school. Honorable Speaker, it was a then Member of Parliament, the Honorable Mukiri Macharia, through his staff, his member of staff, one Mr. Karanja Wageshe from Witima, who approached my grandfather and told him that we could actually apply for bursary funds for me to go through secondary education. Honorable Speaker, that's how I went through secondary school from the year 2002 to 2005 to getting to be one of the first people in my secondary school to qualify to be admitted to public university by just missing a mean grade of an A, in my case, I see by 1 point, despite going through a district mixed day secondary school. So every time I see this discussion about NGCDF, for me it's personal. Every time I think about the millions of students in this country who would like to be in a boarding school, who would like to be in a school that has a name that was of repute in this country, perhaps like Precious Blood Ruta, or Alliance Boys, or Alliance Girls, or closer home to Molo Academy, to Marymount, to all those big name schools, but cannot afford to get there because even affording transport to go to those schools would be a nightmare. I really identify with those students. And Honorable Speaker, when I took my candidature to the people of Molo to be the Member of Parliament in 2017, I made a commitment. In fact, for my re-election bids in 2022, which was based on my performance, because the people of Molo have never re-elected anyone for the last 30 years until yours truly became the first person for the last 30 years to be re-elected to the position of Member of Parliament for Molo constituency. I told them, where did you elect me? And of course, Honorable Speaker, our polling stations are either our primary schools or our secondary schools. And I told my people, if you go to where you voted for me, whether it's that primary school or whether it's that secondary school, and you find it the same way it was when you voted for me in 2017, do not vote for me again. And they did vote for me because all the polling stations, everywhere where people went to vote in the last election, in my constituency, there was a difference. We had either renovated the school, we had the first permanent building in that school, and if it was a day secondary school, I told them that by my 5 years tenure, I will make sure that we have 100% equipped and complete science laboratories in all the day secondary schools in my constituency. Honorable Speaker, I'm saying again here that I was re-elected on that merit. So when the issues of NGCDF come to this House, and the reports that we are hearing today, where some have mismanaged the funds sent to their constituencies, and some are being well uploaded on the equalization that has been done in our education system. Because, Honorable Speaker, the availability of infrastructure in our schools, the availability of a fund where people that cannot be able to pay school fees have a recourse to go to through bursaries. When we can do scholarships for the very needy families in this country and make sure that they go to school, then that becomes an equalizer in our society. Honorable Speaker, nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be born poor. And certainly, nobody wants to die poor. On the being born poor, it's not a choice of anyone in the Republic of this country. If you all be asked, we would be born in privileged families where we could have everything that we would want. But that is not the reality. So the only way we could bridge that gap between those born in privileged families and those born in absolute poverty, in underprivileged families, in families of need, if we made sure that our public education system gets to work. Honorable Speaker, in my normal line of interaction, I meet some people who tell me they went to school in Molo. And in my imagination, I always think, so where did you go to school in Molo? And some will tell me I went to Molo Academy, I went to Marymount, like my wife did, I went to Albagon Secondary School. Those people, especially, that are doing well in their careers. But one of the instances, I met somebody who told me I went to Turi. Honorable Speaker, Turi is one of the wards, one of the rural wards in my constituency, because my turn wards will be Albagon and Molo. So I was very curious to find out, which school did you go to Turi? Only for him to tell me, okay, I actually went to St. Andrews. In my imagination, Honorable Speaker, I do not count St. Andrews, Turi, as one of the schools in my constituency. Until someone did tell me that they actually went to Turi, And when I thought they probably went to Turi Secondary School or to St. Bridan Secondary School or to Mianzini, they actually told me that they went to St. Andrews. It took me a further surprise during one of the travels facilitated by this parliament, when waiting at an airport in Paris, I got to meet a former cabinet secretary for finance in Nigeria. And then when I told him what I do, he says, "You remember parliament in Kenya?" "I know Kenya. I'm MP for Molo." "Oh, my kids go to school there." Then I asked, "Oh." And he tells me all her children have gone to St. Andrew's Turi School. And that's when I realized, actually, that St. Andrew's Turi is such a respectable school across the region, and where many respectable people across the globe want to take their children to. And that was, Honorable Speaker, in 2018. And I asked myself, how can I make sure that the schools in Molo constituency can have such a repute as St. Andrew's Turi? We are not there yet. But, Honorable Speaker, 99% now of my schools in Molo constituency have a complete and equipped science laboratory, courtesy of NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, in light of the digitalization of our economy, in this 5 years term that we just started in August, I have made a commitment with my people that will make sure that every secondary school will have an equipped and complete ICT laboratory. And because of the new system of junior secondary schools, I also make sure even our junior secondary schools actually have a science laboratory, so that education can become an equalizer.
Thank you. The Honorable Professor Phyllis Bartow, member for Moiben. Oh, she's not here. Her card is okay. The Honorable John Gitonga, member for Manyata. Okay, the Honorable Mugambi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join my colleagues on this important discussion concerning the CDF. Madam Speaker, I stand here as a proud member of Parliament for steering this important fund to development for our schools and for bursaries for our kids. Madam Speaker, we were privileged to go to very important schools, boarding schools, etc., etc. Madam Speaker, those days, we didn't have so many schools because the population was also very low. But now, as the population continued, the need for education, the need for more infrastructure, the need for more classrooms, the need for more facilities in our education started becoming a problem. Madam Speaker, I stand here to certify that through CDF, we have given opportunity to the disadvantaged children within our constituencies. Madam Speaker, we have given opportunity for children from parents who are disabled to continue their education. We have given opportunity through CDF, orphans, single mothers, children from very poor families, an opportunity to study because of the bursary they get from CDF. Madam Speaker, it is through education that we will be able to create equality between the rich and the poor. Madam Speaker, through CDF, good infrastructure, good bursaries, we have elevated the children that many people thought they will never succeed in education. Madam Speaker, I stand here to certify that through CDF, we have created doctors. We have created engineers, pilots, administrators, good citizens. If it wasn't there, we would not have created these people in our midst. As I'm speaking today, Madam Speaker, I have a student who used to sleep with a watchman in the school from a very poor family. That student now is doing neurosurgeon at the University of Nairobi, courtesy of CDF. So when somebody mismanages this fund for whatever reason, it really creates a bad image for the entire membership as members of parliament, but it's somebody who has no caring for these disadvantaged people. Madam Speaker, through CDF, we have seen the youth activities being promoted in our constituencies. Through CDF, we have created opportunities for sports and talent growth. We have created opportunity for athletics because, like my constituency, Madam Speaker, Bore constituency, we have embarked, during last parliament, we embarked on a process of developing playing grounds. And I'm proudly saying that already we have created opportunities for 18 schools where we have developed playing grounds for our children. Madam Speaker, we have used the CDF to create infrastructure for our security, where we didn't have police posts, we have used CDF for that purpose. Where we didn't have laboratories, we have created laboratories. And I will invite the committee of CDF to visit Bori constituency to see the kind of laboratories and libraries that we have put up through CDF. Madam Speaker, the CDF has a facility for environment. And I want to thank the community of Bori, the school fraternity, the parents, and the community and pupils and teachers. Because through CDF, we've been able to acquire seedlings, and now we are replanting the trees that are readily available for afforestation. So, Madam Speaker, when a member or a fund manager or anybody associated with CDF mismanages this, it really defeats the logic. And it calls for us as leaders to review our integrity. Madam Speaker, I spend a lot of time ensuring that no single amount of CDF is misused. That's why we have been able, in all our 87 primary schools, we have an infrastructure program in all our schools. There are some schools that we have put up 100% from standard 1 all the way to standard 8. There are secondary schools that we have developed, new. There are secondary schools and primary schools that were dilapidated. But now when you go there, our children are enjoying. Madam Speaker, seeing children attending class with no widows. Mr. Speaker, I didn't notice your presence. I thought it was a ghost, Mr. Speaker, apologies.
Speaker can never be a host. Order.
Proceed. On a light note, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can't understand why somebody is not so insensitive that our children are going to classes without windows, without floors, without desks, and it's something that can be verifiable. And yet, you mismanage that fund. it shows that some leaders have no moral integrity. And I don't want to be put in that category. That's why I made a commitment that we shall use every coin for our CDF to ensure that is comfortable. I mean, our kids are comfortable. We have embarked on a process of ensuring that now we have classes commensurate to junior secondary in every school in Bori. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, within the next 2 financial years, all our schools in Bori constituency will have junior secondary facilities commensurate to a secondary school, ranging from desks, classrooms, sanitary facilities, libraries, and laboratories. Mr. Speaker, our security organs need support. We cannot rely and say a government will be doing these things. I'm so proud because in all my 5 wards, we have now a police station, which was not there before. Why? Because we need good service from our security systems. Our police have been operating in a very bad, dilapidated offices, such that to the point that people don't want to say where they are working. So I'm proud to say that this is CDF. And therefore, members, let's not take advantage of this to mismanage. Let's utilize every coin. It is very important. I'm looking forward that the money will be released, the balance. I think on average all the constituencies have about 100 million shillings for this financial year. We are entering the next financial year where we still have over an average of 140 million. So, Mr. Speaker, I think once that money comes, you'll see more wonders on CDF. But it's a shame for those constituencies where money has been mismanaged. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Janet Sitienei.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to add my voice to the motion that is on. Mr. Speaker, I am one MP that has really, my people have really benefited with the NGCDF fund. And I want to say it is one fund that has helped many people, especially from poor backgrounds, to go to school, to go to colleges, and earn a living after that. It is one fund that needs to really be enhanced to be able to support our constituencies and support our families to improve their livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, it would be very sad if this fund is misappropriated and misused, because it is one fund that has equalized education in all our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, this fund, if it were enhanced, it would have actually assisted to move, it would have assisted our junior secondary schools be better placed or be better accessed, because at the moment we have very many challenges within our junior secondary schools. Most of the schools have no labs, and we would even wish, Mr. Speaker, that our board, NGCDF board, can allow that fund to be able to buy mobile labs in the meantime as we wait to build, for those who have not done the labs within their schools, to be able to do it. This is one fund, Mr. Speaker, NGCDF fund, that has actually improved enrollment of children in our schools. And Mr. Speaker, I want to put this, that this NGCDF fund has actually been felt within our communities. One, it supports the very needy, women, the widows, who have children and have nobody else to support them. The CDF fund, through the bursaries, have really helped them. The CDF fund has also helped to support those people who are old and have no earning to be able.
Order. The honorable member who has just crossed the floor and has been crossing the floor severally, a portion of this afternoon, the House paired under the chairmanship of the Speaker to talk about order in this House. Could you go back and do the orderly thing? Just go back. You may proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just saying this fund has also been able to support people who have had challenges in terms of being able to pay NHIF fund. We have been able to identify very needy homes and supported them through the Social Security Fund, which is provided for in the CDF Act. And therefore, I want to say categorically that this is one fund that we would not take it lightly. We would only want to enhance it so that we can be able to support and reach out to very many people. Apart from improving enrollment, it has also been able to improve the mean grade in our schools. Because once we have the children going to school every day through provision of bursaries, then our mean scores in our schools have also improved. Mr. Speaker, some of those constituencies that we find still having classrooms without walls or concrete walls, it is very unfortunate. We would want to request that no child in this era of NGCDF should be living or should be studying in a classroom that is mud and grass-touched roofed, like we have seen in other places. So we would want to ask that what we had raised in the last term, that it may be enhanced to at least 5% to be able to cater for other facilities within the school. Mr. Speaker, you will also realize that it has also supported talent nurturing, that is sports, and it has also been able to support the climate change in terms of tree planting, and therefore we would also want to request, since we are all, we've been directed by His Excellency the President to be able to plant 15 billion trees. We should be able to use this fund to ensure that when we plant trees, how are we going to ensure that these trees are going to actually survive? They should allow us as members of parliament through the NGCDF committee to be able to fund people who are going to ensure, to protect these trees, to ensure that these trees grow and are able to support climate change in future and be able to improve the environment. Mr. Speaker, this is one fund that I want to say it has done a lot of things within the constituencies and the counties at large, and would want to support and say that we should never misappropriate these funds. We should be able to use these funds prudently so that very many schools benefit and the community and our children can be able to get better education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to put my voice. Thank you.
Very well. Is the Honorable John Gitonga in the House? Is the Honorable Martin Wanyonyi in the House? And in the absence of Martin Wanyonyi, could we have Honorable Charles Onchonka Bonchari? Wow. So then let's have the Honorable Phyllis Bateau. Let me ask the honorable members who are in the House to put intervention right away.
I will see you through intervention. Just put intervention. The Honorable Beatrice Kimei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak to the motion that we have, consideration of the Auditor General report on the financial statement for NGCDF for some constituencies. Honorable Speaker, NGCDF and GAF, National Affirmative Action Fund, is very, very important, not only to the members, but mainly to the people of Kenya. I'm saying this, Honorable Speaker, because the members are just patrons of the fund or the funds, Honorable Speaker. What it has done is unmatched. Lives have been changed because of the NGCDF and GAF. Students have gone to school, and especially from vulnerable families. Widows have actually had their children to school. Single mothers at the same time. People who are able differently have had their children go to school because of the NGCDF and even GAF. And more importantly, there are those who would have dropped out of colleges and universities. But because of the availability of these funds, Honorable Speaker, they have been able to continue with their skills, continue with their learning. And I would actually say this is the fund that has actually done a turnaround in the lives of many. In Kericho County, in particular, Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate what has been done by NGCDF and GAF. Infrastructure has been developed in schools. We also have the tea buying centers, which have been improved. So when it comes to GAF, Honorable Speaker, empowerment of youth, women, and people living with disability has actually happened. Honorable Speaker, I have an initiative that is called Usawa Kwa Wote. This is where we have very, very humble families getting support from GAF. Recently, Honorable Speaker, through GAF, those very vulnerable families were able to receive fertilizers and maize seeds, and especially to plant during this season. And now they are happy, though it did not reach everybody, Honorable Speaker. The 1,000 families who benefited from the same appreciate, and this will go hand in hand with ensuring that we have food security. Honorable Speaker, value addition is one of the areas that and GAF and of course NGCDF has supported. In terms of agriculture, where we have coffee, tea, the vulnerable families have been able to receive, and I want to believe that in the near future, they will have a source of income. Honorable Speaker, I would actually say that NGCDF and GAF has given hope to the hopeless. Those who didn't know what to do next, there is hope through this and initiative that is coming from the government. And therefore, I want to believe that as members of this honorable house, we will work prudently to make sure that the use of these funds is done to reach the people who are supposed to receive and to benefit from the same. Talents have actually, people have actually improved their talents through this. sporting activities, where we have pole games, athletics, among many others. And I want to believe, Honorable Speaker, that for NGAF, with the promise by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, that you will give an addition of 1 billion, and it will be something that will be good addition. That is 50% from what is already there for each county and, of course, each constituency. I know this one will go hand in hand with helping many, many more families. Honorable Speaker, with NGCDF and GAF, small and medium enterprises have actually improved. Women, youth, and even people living with disability have been able to have something to start businesses and even to add to the businesses they already have. I believe this one, in the next 1 or 2 years, many of our people will actually have their lives improved. Honorable Speaker, water is key and water is life. Boreholes have been drilled. Through this, many families have been connected, but there is so much need to do the same. And I believe, Honorable Speaker, that the little that we have from GAF will actually go hand in hand with helping the many needy. I support, Honorable Speaker, but I'm calling upon all the patrons to make sure that we work very closely with the people in the ground, the county coordinators, the DA, the procurement, and the port, the NGAF port, and the NGCDF port, to make sure that money is not misused, it is not misappropriated. This is what has caused a re-election of the many members, and when we work very closely and reach the concerned, I know, Honorable Speaker, that this one will actually add value to many. When it comes to the side of health, Honorable Speaker, there are members of our communities who cannot pay for NHIF, the 500 shillings every month. They don't even have even 100 shillings, not even something for their food. And I believe members or patrons, when they pay for these members of the community from their constituencies, they are able, Honorable Speaker, to access the facility very easily. And I pray that it should be added, the NGCDF and GAF, and when this is done, more and more families will be able to benefit from the same. So I really want to support this and to say that more NGCDF, more GAF will lead to more members of the communities assessing the fund, and more support is actually needed. And with this, I support. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Wilberforce Oundo, MP Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to join my colleagues in the debate in support of the motion that has been presented by the Committee of the Central Funds for the National Assembly in respect of 26 constituencies in various counties in this country: Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River, for the financial year 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016, that has been laid on the table of the House. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the financial years in which we are reviewing, it's a symptom of the challenges we have had as the National Assembly, to execute our mandate under Article 95. Honorable Speaker, one of the mandates of the National Assembly is oversight, and oversight is exhibited through review of audited accounts of the various government funds that have been disbursed after being appropriated by this House. Honorable Speaker, there is obviously a basic rule that when the matter delays too much or justice delayed is justice denied. We are looking at 2013, 2014, up to 2016 financial years. Honorable Speaker, that is several years, a whopping almost 6 or so years behind schedule. Even if there was a misappropriation, even if there was some kind of unprofessional misconduct, Honorable Speaker, it becomes extremely difficult to bring the persons who are in charge to account for their misdeeds, for their misbehavior, for their acts of commission and omission. And therefore, it's my rallying call to the Central Fund Accounts Committee, and I'm glad the chair is here with us today, to find mechanisms to ensure that all the constituency accounts are audited or they have reviewed by the committee and presented to this committee, to the National Assembly, for debate, review, and adoption, so that at any given time we are up to date in respect of our mandate as members of the National Assembly. 6 years down the line, Honorable Speaker, even if there was misappropriation, the high turnover rate of the fund account managers becomes practically impossible to assess whether there was a value for money or not. I therefore call upon the National Assembly to accord the committee the necessary facilitation, the necessary resources, both financial and manpower, and technical manpower, to ensure that they review these reports and bring them to book. Honorable Speaker, it's also important for us, the National Assembly, we dispense of these accounts, because the normal narrative that's peddled outside there by the media, by misinformed civil society, and many other busybodies, is as if the members of parliament are the managers of these accounts. That's far from the truth. Honorable Speaker, the persons charged with accounting for this money is the fund account manager, the district accountant, and the Constituent Fund Accounts Committee, in totality with the CEO of the board. Members of parliament are not signatories anywhere. Members of parliament do not make any direct decisions in how the funds are utilized. So I want to urge the fourth estate, the media so to speak, that when they report, let them report objectively, knowing who are the people responsible for any misuse and for any misappropriation of public funds. Honorable Speaker, and I find this is a malady that affects even our colleagues here. They still have the mentality that the alpha and the omega of the CDF fund. Members of parliament have no role to play at all in day-to-day management of the fund. Therefore, any audit queries that are raised here, we do it through an oversight, and indeed you are at liberty to summon the CDFC committee plus the fund account manager to ask them to brief you on why there is a qualified report or whatever report in respect of any constituency. I want to ask my colleagues to desist tying themselves around the hip with the CDF, because whenever something goes wrong, the media will pick it up and the courts will always use it to frustrate the national government CDF committee. That said and done, Honorable Speaker, the impact of CDF cannot be gainsaid. What CDF has done to this country since it was enacted in 2003 is something that if we had developed this principle and discarded this funny thing called Harambe, this country would have gone very many years. Honorable Speaker, me and you and many colleagues here are invited in many churches to undertake Harambes to build churches. But you go back after 6 months or 1 year, they have invited somebody else to conduct a Harambe to undertake the same work that we are supposed to do. That's what we are simply, the conclusion is so simple. The inference is so simple that Harambe spirit, as noble as it was at the beginning of this country, lost its meaning along the way, and therefore that's why it was apt for us to bring the country to initiate the CDF approach that has helped to transform infrastructure. When it was able to do everything under the sun, you would find most water projects in constituencies were initiated by CDF. Many health facilities were initiated by CDF. Many economic empowerment programs were initiated by CDF. After the 2010 Constitution, Honorable Speaker, the only visible development you can see in a constituency that you go are those that have been built or funded and supervised by NG-CDF. And that also brings into question, devolution was always supposed to be improve the livelihood and welfare of the people of Kenya. Many all over, wherever you go, many Kenyans will ask you, what happened to the devolved fund that comes through the counties? What happened? We want to urge the governors and the county assemblies who oversight the governors and the CEC to borrow the model of CDF so that we are able to develop this country equally and fairly and equitably. Honorable Speaker, the debate has now started to rage. 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. When we championed BBI, that the concept was the hallmark, many people demonized us and said BBI is bad. Now they are feeling the pinch, and that's why at any given time, when you legislate for prosperity, not for today, not to sort out today's problems, not for the basics of today, for political expedience of today, because sooner than later, whatever you are saying and whatever statements you are making will come to haunt you as at any given time. It will not take long. Honorable Speaker, schools are opening for second term. GSS is in progress. Many of us know the teething problem of GSS. With the delayed disbursement of funds from National Treasury, it means the challenges we have in GSS will remain with us forever for many years to come. It will therefore mean this particular academic year, those boys and girls who don beautiful uniform are wasting their time in classrooms, and that's lost opportunity. We want to urge the National Treasury, for the sake of the children of this country, for the sake of accelerated development of this country, please do all that you can to release the funds so that we are able, constituency committees are able to allocate and expend those funds before the end of the financial year, so the people of Kenya can see value for money. Money is of no use being retained in accounts. Money is of no use being kept somewhere. We want to see rapid development. And Honorable Speaker, all over the world, the government is the biggest spender. When the government is not spending, the economy contracts. Taxes are not being collected. So it's a paradox that the government does not spend and wants to collect money. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the motion and I urge the committee to move with speed, ensuring before the end of the year, we are almost in 2022, 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Peter Olechapo. Peter Olechakapo. I got the name right. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is Peter Lochakapong.
Very well.
So that is the name. And Honorable Speaker, I want to begin by, first of all, thanking you for giving me this chance to make a comment on the Auditor's General Report on the 26 NGCDF constituencies. I want to begin by saying that this is an audit report of 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, about 10 years or 11 years ago. And Honorable Speaker, whatever recommendations are made here, I don't know whether they will be of any value now, given the time that it has taken for these books of accounts to be looked at. However, I just want to say that, that aside, NGCDF, the National Government Constituency Development Fund, is a fund that has targeted the lives of many people in this country, and it's a fund that has targeted the lives across the country. And this is one fund that has been decentralized and has effectively assisted communities and assisted Kenyans. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that some of the recommendations by the committee that I have seen in this report, if they have not been already implemented, I think they should be implemented. One, that fund account managers should be facilitators rather than people who are a hindrance to the performance of the NGCDF. Many a times, they put a lot of roadblocks in implementation of projects. So I want to say that they also need to be given a portion to take responsibility on, especially when an audit report comes out. So the fund account managers should take some responsibilities. Now, we have also observed that by the time books were presented to the auditor for audit, certain documents were not failed. This points to poor bookkeeping by the fund account managers or the district accountants. And I want to say that in situations like that, they must also be held to account, because if somebody does not do his work by keeping record, then again, that responsibility should not be placed on the shoulder of another person who was not involved. Now, many times, Honorable Speaker, you realize that when reports come out of NGCDF affecting particular constituencies, the media and many other people are quick to point fingers at members of parliament. And you know, members of parliament, their role is very minimal. It's just to ensure that things are running smoothly. But actually, the people who account for these funds, who also budget for these funds, are the committees with the assistance and guidelines given to them by the board through the fund account managers. So I want it known that the members of parliament do not have a big role here. Theirs is just to ensure that work goes on well and that everything is done according to the guidelines that are released by the board. Honorable Speaker, I also want to say that in one of the recommendations by the committee, that the fund account managers should work with other government agencies and other departments in project selection, project identification, project costing, and even project budget. I want to differ a bit here because that increases bureaucracy of doing work. Because the time you spend in getting to these people, in liaising with them, is time that gets wasted. And I also want to say that we are in this country and we know that sometimes you can be misled into costing a project which would otherwise have costed maybe 800,000 a class, then you are given a big queue of 1.5 million. But because it is coming from a credible government institution, you are tempted to say, because these are people who are created to do this job, then they are doing the right thing, which sometimes may not be true. We have had situations where we have, in some cases, we can build a class for 600,000, a class for 800,000 in some areas. But when you give it to other government departments, agencies, they will give you even a class at a cost of about 2 million. And that may not help us because we want to ensure that we spread this money and achieve value for money as much as possible within our constituencies. Honorable Speaker, I want to say this, that the National Government Constituency Development Fund have greatly helped our people. One, in allocation of bursaries, though not uniform throughout this country, but this has ensured that our children go to school, that is access education, and they are also retained in those institutions through the bursary we allocate to them, which is a good thing. Two, we have also developed school infrastructure. We have built classes. We have also, in some cases, built dormitories, laboratories. This has improved the performance, the academic performance in those institutions. In some cases, Honorable Speaker, we have also, and the majority of us have also procured buses for our schools. These buses have easen the way our students move, either going for symposiums or geographical trips or excursions. And this has greatly even reduced accidents because they are traveling in their own bus, and school buses are normally well maintained in terms of servicing and all that. Honorable Speaker, in places like where I come from that are prone to insecurity, we have, through the CDF, established police posts, built police posts, built chief's offices that have assisted greatly in bringing services closer to the people. And all this is courtesy of CDF. So I want to say that has greatly helped us in those places where we have issues of banditry, cattle rustling, and all that. We have been able to build security camps, and this has really helped us. Honorable Speaker, I have seen in this report where they were suggesting that we give a guideline on the use of emergency funds within the CDF. I want, however, to say that the emergency funds provided for within CDF has greatly assisted and respond in times of emergencies. You find that sometimes in situations where a school has had a collapsed toilet, CDF responds very fast. A school has been blown off by wind, CDF comes in to respond very fast. And I think it is only CDF that is very near to the people, and its response is almost instant and timely through the emergency funds within CDF. I wanted to say that they should not put a lot of restrictions on these funds, because if that is done, then it will fail to respond in good time and to solve the problem, and therefore it now becomes not an emergency, but just a fund like any other fund that you now take a long process to get. So I want to say that regulations and guidelines on emergencies should be a bit relaxed and should be reduced so that immediately we have an emergency, then we can, as soon as possible, just respond and help that institution. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that if all of us follow whatever guidelines are given to manage CDF, I think this country will move forward. I want to say that through proper utilization of national government CDF, personally, I have had to be re-elected for a second time in a constituency which otherwise would not elect people for 2 consecutive times. So I want to thank the people of Sigor for this, and of course commit that we are going to prudently manage constituency development fund as we have been doing for the betterment of our people and to improve lives of our people and ensure that as many of our children access education as possible. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to support this report.
Very well. The whip, I can see you on the list here, but you have already spoken on this. No. The rules of this House don't allow for that. You did very well, and that should suffice. Let's have the the veteran legislator Jane Kihara, MP Naivasha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, to give me a chance to speak on this auditor's report on NGCDF. Mr. Speaker, like you rightly say, I'm a pioneer in matters NGCDF. We passed it in this House in 2003. And forever I remain applauding the Honorable Engineer Morioki Karoe, who came up with the idea of NGCDF. And if I just give a short history of what he used to tell us, because he was a pioneer, also chairman, is that development in this country used to be so skewed to the regions that support the government of the day. And when he was young as in school, he was able to understand things. He would go to DC's meetings and PC's meeting, and people would request for projects or developments. And the answer would be, yes, it will be done when funds become available. So he kept on asking himself, when are these funds going to be available? And since that time, he started now working very hard to be in Parliament and come up with this idea of bringing equality in the country. Mr. Speaker, I also happened to be in the pioneer NGCDF committee. That time it was just CDF. And we went around this country. It's unfortunate because that time, CDF addressed each and every development or every need. I remember I did a lot of health centers. I did a lot of water projects. I did maternity in health projects, in health centers. So it used to cover each and every.
Yes, Honorable Osoro. Is it information or order? It's a point of order. Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, the member that spoke before Honorable Jane and the Honorable Jane